Welcome, everybody, to the December 15th, 2022, 9 a.m. Planning Board special meeting. And seeing we have a quorum, call the meeting to order. If we could please start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Thank you. As we start the meeting, I'd like to give a brief description as to where we are and what we're doing today. This is our fifth meeting in the Phase 2 UDO update process, which we started back in August of this year. We resume at today's meeting at our newly formatted Section 3.8 Non-Residential Use Standards, Section H, docks, piers, and bulkheads, which roughly coincides with our existing UDO Article 7 Supplemental Regulations, Section 7.22. We have a self-imposed time limit that the Planning Board has imposed on our own meetings for this UDO of a 2-hour limit. It's 9 a.m. Roughly right now, so at 11 a.m. hopefully we'll be finished with our sections that we've set aside to work on today. If not, we'll take a vote, and only by unanimous positive vote can we continue the meeting beyond 2 hours. All right, starting with the section on which I have, if anybody corrects me, that's fine too. I have docks, piers, bulkheads, and living shoreline, which we have on our table of uses 3.1. Wes, I was a little curious as to docks, piers being permitted with standards in BR1. Didn't seem to me like we were really going to have any docks or piers in our beach residential section 1. I know we have a CR1 area further east where, of course, that's different. Right. And we have walkways that go out there that have been added under special agreements. Correct. But do we really need to even entertain having docks and piers in BR1?
You do have some bulkheads from time to time in BR1, but it has been historically a permitted use in the BR1, so I didn't remove it, but your point is well noted.
Well, to me, it's not a big issue, but I just was wondering where, why that would even need to be considered. For example, in MR3, we do have ponds within MR3 that do require bulkheads in some cases, so I could understand the need for that. Does anybody else on the planning board have any comments regarding that?
Yeah, one thing I will point out is, and this is in general, with the rewrite of the UDO for conditional rezoning, there's going to be some flexibility. If somebody is really dead set on having a pier, they can use that as a means to either be denied or approved for such a thing. So it's not like this is going to be written in stone for those cases. It's a situation where it's a little bit on the margins, but I agree. I think it ought to be removed from BR1.
Okay. What does the board feel?
It's a current use right now, if I'm right.
That's right. And so, look, no one's going to build a dock in the BR1, right? But they may put a bulkhead on their property, seaward of their house, if there's fill, etc. So, and they're not going to have a little shoreline either. I don't necessarily think that by leaving it there, it's always been there.
Well, and it still does fall under use standards.
Correct.
So which we've now added, where before it was permitted.
Correct. Yes. Before it was just said piers and docks as regulated by CAMA, bulkheads as defined and regulated by piers and docks, etc. So,
well, there could be a weather situation that could create a need for bulkheads. I certainly can appreciate that. And something we don't see right now.
That's right. And remember, in the BR1 too, there's a limitation, on you can't go beyond a certain distance.
Like 125 feet.
That's correct. So you know, like if the lot slopes down towards the ocean, for example, and they're just putting some fill in to have a level yard, they may have a bulkhead at the.
But they're going to want to go so far anyway.
Correct.
Okay, for a grade separation.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Richard, does that satisfy you
Yeah,
that there
yeah,
is
no.
Okay,
there are use standards that would
Yes.
tag
Yeah.
onto that?
Okay.
Under dune walkovers, I was curious why BB1 would not allow dune walkovers. We do have some BB1 areas that on the north side of North Shore that I could
Mhm.
see an application, if you will, where they could put something out into the marsh.
I think that's perfectly. It hasn't been in there historically, so I didn't add it. But
Well, I just saw where it does border on the marsh. I'd hate to get.
so on the marsh, that would be a dock.
Yes, yes.
A dock and a pier, not necessarily a dune.
Right.
Dune walkover.
Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah.
So you're suggesting it would be allowed in or BB1?
Well, but here's another case. We do have some BB1 lots that are on the ocean,
Correct.
and
And the historical rule has been that they're allowed 1 per 4 lots.
for
But
4 lots, yeah. We
Yeah.
have it on First Street, so there'd be none on the east side of the gazebo that could fit.
I don't believe it would be an issue, and I don't want to get into this whole thing. I think really the regulation has historically been on the residential portions of the lot. You know, in BB1, you want to allow dune walkovers, or even say that each lot is allowed to have one. I mean, I don't.
Well, Chad, does that create any issues for us? I mean, there's some lots on the west side of the gazebo parking lot.
The dune walkovers are already established.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
There won't be any allowed that aren't already established
in the BB1.
Or even on BR.
or BR1.
That's right.
Yeah.
Lisa, what happens if it comes up with a scenario that one needs to be moved? Would this need to be allowed so we can legally potentially move one?
It's town property.
Okay, government would not have to.
And all of the walkways are government owned. They're not easements. They're government
All right,
owned.
that satisfies me.
Yeah.
So
That satisfies
I
me.
guess
Thank you, Liz.
so.
Um,
We're not going to add it to BB1.
Under eating establishments, under MR2, we already have an eating establishment in MR2 at the Oyster Bay Clubhouse.
That would be a different thing, right? Because that's a clubhouse, and that golf clubhouses are
And they
allowed.
allow
They're not-
certain
now
things to tag onto them.
Golf goes away, and the only thing that's there would be a restaurant or an eating establishment. Then that's a separate use.
Okay, and what about Houses Place and Sea Trail? Is
Well, that's MR3, and it
That's
does show that that's,
permitted?
and that's,
Special use. Yeah.
yeah.
Especially,
that was what was confusing me.
okay.
But
Yeah, it's part of the clubhouse and accessory.
houses is different. It's a,
Standalone restaurant.
well,
Well,
but
it's
it's not,
within, it's within a clubhouse facility.
it's the
There's
Village
a swimming
Activity
pool.
Center.
There's 2 swimming pools in there.
Mhm.
There's a game room.
Yeah,
Gym. Yeah.
yeah. That's sort of a different.
Is that kind of a non-conforming
It is a
existing use?
non-conformity.
Yeah.
Well, it's a conformity because it's allowed to be a special use. If it goes away for an X period of time, they would be able to come back with it as
Okay.
it's written now, but
Um,
they would have to go back through the special use.
I'm going to
process.
withdraw my Oyster Bay
Okay,
thing. I
yeah.
understand that.
Yeah.
Electronic gaming rooms. I can't see why we wouldn't want them in the Mud District. Electronic gaming operations. I'd hate to put a restriction on them because the Mud District is, I don't want to say self-governing, but it
Mhm.
basically it has its own development plan.
And you know what? These are sort of the
Talking about gambling.
proverbial has been that the issue: is it legal? Is it not legal? Over the last decade, there's been some recent court cases that potentially are going to come out to say that they are now permitted, and so these things will potentially start being active again. It would just be my recommendation to limit where they can go. You can certainly put them in the mud district, but
Well, the mud district has a certain percentage of residential. And, those kind of facilities tend to track late.
Yeah, it is. It's a game of chance in our definition. So you're exactly right.
yeah,
So
it's
I would-
sort of a nuisance type of use.
Yeah, I would.
I think the
cash
gaming cat, the
merchandise
gaming
are
cat is
redeemed.
out of the bag nationwide.
Right.
So we're kind of swimming upstream, I think.
Correct.
You can do it on your phone. You can do it on your pad.
Yeah,
If a business wants to create a business to do it, I in the mud district especially, I don't see why we should have any objection. I mean, that cat, that is running. I mean, there's going to be gaming, sports betting all over the place.
Well,
So
well,
But
I
if we
would
do
say, having lived in New York and having OTB stands, because that's what a gaming situation is going to look like. And those have generally been restricted to business areas because they stay open late. And
we can
there's
regulate the hours.
crowds are outside, mulling around, having a cigarette. And I'm trying to envision that working in a place like Marketplace. And for me, I don't think it's a fit. So
We allow it right now, according to the new table in MB1, Mainland Business 1, which is a extremely limited section. MB2 would expand that significantly. But if we made it, bootstrapping up of what Ron said, if we made it a special use, then it would really, in the mud district, then it would have to go before the Board of Adjustment. But how much authority does the Board of Adjustment have within the mud district?
They must approve the use if the applicant meets their burden.
Yes.
So you can place conditions on it, but but remember, a special use is basically saying this thing is permitted, but you just have to prove that you've met your burden. Only in the event that a neighbor shows up or someone in the mud district shows up with some type of contrary evidence that they haven't met their burden, which typically does not occur.
You were approving it.
Correct.
Yeah. You have to have suitable reason. It can't be arbitrary.
That's right.
But right now, it's not allowed. And it's the way the table is written right now in the mud district.
That's right.
I don't
And
know,
of course, we can set the hours of operation, which we did last meeting on a number of places. We've
That's right.
set the hours of operation and adjusted them to what we thought was reasonable.
What do you think, Wes?
I mean, I've recommended that you reduce the locations where they can be permitted. I mean, this is basically a room full of video poker machines. That's
Or it could be.
that's what it will be.
That's what it will
That's
be.
what it will be. Okay. Well, having dealt with this over the years,
Yeah.
and it's most communities and having dealing with this, they don't like them.
This is one of those situations like where you have to have it in there, but it's not recommended.
Well, why would we even allow it in MB1?
Right, then we shouldn't. Then don't.
You
It's
need
like-
to put it somewhere.
It's
You
like
need to put it
Because
somewhere.
right now we could put it by where Outfitters is.
it's like adult entertainment. It's like the tattoo parlor conversation. It's like you have to
Right.
have it in there, but you have it in one zoning district and you put it special use. Don't put it anywhere else.
yeah, I mean, I could see.
I don't know. I'm
But
willing to withdraw my
as
question.
a
on this.
mainlander, then why did we pick the mainland district to be the one?
You could put it in BB1 if you
Right.
want.
No.
No. Well, why?
People have my email address.
Well,
And my phone
but as an MR1 person,
Yeah.
a mainlander,
So
why
I-
is it stuck in the mainland?
So are we getting a gathering
It's
sentiment?
because it was there already.
Oh,
Correct.
okay, that's the best argument I heard for that. then.
Yeah.
At one time, there was.
All right, I'm willing to move on if anybody has any gas.
Before we leave this page, can I ask a couple questions?
Okay.
I think we're leaving the page.
Like, I'm not ready to leave the page.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
No,
Doug.
you got it.
The only one left was the fire department.
That's what I was going to say.
You have a change on that? Go ahead. you can
Well,
do that
it just
first.
seems to me we allow police and fire in a whole bunch of areas, but isn't it a reality that if we put a police station somewhere, or we put a parking lot somewhere, or we put a municipal facility somewhere, we're going to change the zoning automatically to municipal industrial. It's not going to stay as MB1 or MH2.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily presume that. I mean, it's far easier for the town just if they need to put an I don't believe the town can have an EMS station, but say they need to put a police station in the MB1 or MB2 or BB1. I don't think that they would want to rezone it. They would just be permitted to do so. I mean, remember,
The town can do what it wants to do.
that's to some degree. I have been privy to many discussions where a local government has wanted to do things. The citizens did not want them to do that. I mean, to the degree at which there's almost been lawsuits filed by citizens against the local government for various reasons, and that's occurred in our region.
And help me understand who's trying to do what, and what are they trying to stop, and who's trying to stop it.
Say the town wants to put a police station in, and it would necessitate a rezoning somewhere, and you didn't want a police station next
Right.
to you.
Well, and we could be adding a fire station too, like on the
Or a
island
fire
somewhere.
station.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the situations could come up for that.
Yeah.
We took it out of AF1, which I can appreciate, where it was permitted,
Yes.
and
Yes.
and I appreciate that.
It can stay, but I don't. I
No,
was
I think
not
it should be.
anticipating there being a station.
You've talked me into it.
Okay.
I think it would. I didn't question that it was taken out of AF, but then I just said, why are we going through this process because everything else we've done, like Fire Station 2 or the parking lot here, we've just rezoned the area municipal
Sure.
zoning.
You still have to go through the process. Yeah, I mean, it just depends. I mean, I think that the prerogative here in the town is to try to make sure that town can be permitted to do what they want to do, to the degree that we can. We're not putting necessary roadblocks in our way. It's a different perspective in other places.
As long as we listen to the voters, yes.
So yes, presumably you should be.
Ron, you were going to talk about this topic too, I think. Would you-
Well, no, just a couple of things on this page before we turn the
Go
page.
ahead.
On the daycare facilities, which is okay, we have no use standards. Do we need? First of all, are we referring to child daycare or adult daycare?
I believe it's defined.
And then, do we need some standards or is it automatic that we pull in state licensing requirements
So
I just noticed that there's no use standard there, so
Right.
you can do it by permitted use in these 3 areas.
Yep.
But so I guess what is the definition? Maybe
I can't recall if there was a definition.
Yeah, I had that same question.
so. I guess my main question
there is a
is: do we
definition.
need a use standard that ties into all the state
So
requirements?
remember,
When
we've had
daycare it limits it to child daycare.
So
right.
that's child daycare only.
Yeah, there'd be nursing home type use to account for the other.
Well, adult daycare is different than a nursing home. It's
Yeah.
just it's a place for seniors to go during the day, and
We could add that to adult and child.
which I would assume eventually around here there's going to be some.
I mean, the
I
definition
mean,
could be
the center in Calabash is kind of that, right?
Yes.
Where you go during the day and you
Sure.
But
socialize or whatever.
That's in a commercial district.
The definition can be expanded to include adult or child. At the pleasure of the board.
Let's see what it says. Hold on.
Yeah, I don't have the definition.
As
here.
far as the licensing, I think we've had this discussion that
It's inferred that all that has to be done.
well,
not inferred. It's required, even though we don't say you have to follow the state.
They need to do what they need to do, and the town should not be the responsible authority for overseeing the licensure that they need for other
Yeah,
other
but
agencies.
the town's going to be the point person if there begin to be concerns that they're not meeting standards.
They could be, but
And they're
then-
going to have some basis to say, hey, we need to go take a look at this. And then perhaps we report you to the state authorities who would then take action.
yes, potentially, but you know,
But if the local, if we don't give staff some guidelines in terms of,
so this goes back to the discussion we had. If you put a standard in here that says X facility shall be licensed, then now falls under the responsibility of the town for a licensure that's out of their control. And so let's say something happens. Someone wants to bring a suit against the town because they're not enforcing that so-and-so facility has appropriate licensure, even though we shouldn't technically, that should not be our responsibility. For example, let's say that the daycare facility changes hands to some other owner. Is Chad going to go knock on the door? Hey, do you have your license?
right. Now, and again, I'm drawing from my experience in New York, where there are daycare facilities that are in residential areas that are licensed, that are perfectly legitimate and wonderful places of business for people to park their kids.
That's the home occupation, and that would be
Okay.
allowed. You
Without
know,
em-
up
no
to
employees.
up to 20. Yeah, that's right. Up to 25% of your.
Right.
Okay.
So then, the way I see it right now, you're saying we don't need any use standard because all that's covered. And
Unless
it's
you wanna
certainly
go
what
the-
we've written here as a child daycare, if you read the definition.
That's correct.
It is. It is.
So should we consider, I guess the next question, adjusting the definition to be child and senior?
I think that's fair.
Right.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Now, it doesn't. My first thought was to take the word child out and put person in there, but then if you read the whole definition, then it gets messed up. I think we need a new definition,
We'll modify it just to say any child or adult facility, etc.
right? Because then it talks about the State Department of Public Instructions
Right.
in there and stuff. So I guess the definition will have to be
It will be reworked.
reworked.
Yep.
So it really would need to be almost two definitions.
No, it could be probably put into one.
I think we
Daycare.
can put into one, but we'll
but
just make
differentiate. Okay, cool.
Sure. I can find. I've got some adult daycare definitions. I believe.
Great.
And my other question was a small one, I guess, too. We have on this page dry cleaning and laundry.
Hmm.
Okay. And then on the next page, we have laundromat,
That's correct.
which I
Yeah.
guess is a
That's a self-service.
yeah, self-service, but neither has any use standard. And I believe the differentiation we talk about or thinking about is the size and the in and out traffic. Why we've limited that to just MB1 as opposed to MB2 and BB1. But again, I grew up in an urban area where there was 24-hour laundromats. Probably unlikely here, but because we got nothing in laundromat, should we have a use some with the hours being there? Because they could be fully automated 24-hour laundromats.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure that's. I mean, we put it. I guess is that everybody thinks that's okay in MB1 because right now I guess it would be allowed. Somebody wants to put in a 24-hour laundromat in MB1 because they
Right.
can.
So I felt like it was important to differentiate the two because
Right.
in my mind they're different impacts.
Yes.
So if you would like to, rather than right now per the UDO, someone could arguably put a laundromat in all three of those districts. We've now said that you can only have a laundromat in MB1 and provided a definition to clarify what that is. If you would like to further add use standards for hours of operation, you certainly may do so. We would just need to add an S to that. And
I mean, BB1 may be another possible place to.
Yeah, that's what I was
I mean,
thinking.
quite frankly, the folks at the beach do more laundry than us
Well,
folks in the
and
mainland.
also the mud district. It's,
Right.
I mean,
Sounds
laundromats
good.
certainly aren't going to create the same aura as a gaming institution.
True.
But I would agree that at least
I mean,
for now,
most residents have their own in house, but
a start and stop time I think would be
Okay.
be warranted.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that we can include BB1 or
So do we agree
mud?
that, what about MB2?
Well, it's usually a size thing, right? MB2 is all smaller stuff, right?
Yeah, and they tend to be a fairly small
Yeah.
footprint.
A laundromat.
Yeah, but mainland
Yeah,
business
anymore.
too is right
true.
in here where we are.
Suds and duds. They're
Yeah.
big places.
I'm sorry. Go
I mean,
ahead.
somebody could put, I would see putting a laundromat over by the side of Dollar General. That's,
Yeah.
I would just,
go ahead.
that's fine. But just know that if someone comes in here and puts a laundromat, there may be some folks that are not happy. And
In
for
what
whatever
ways?
reason.
Do you think
I just-
people? Do you think on BB1 people would be happy?
Yes. No, I don't think so.
Why not?
There is a.
If you limit the hours to 8 to 11 or 8 to 9 or
Perfectly
something.
fine to put it in here. I don't have any issue. I will just tell you, in my experience, folks don't like laundromats. They think it attracts a certain clientele they do not like around. And
Laundromats?
so-
Yeah.
People hanging around for an inordinate
That
amount
is
of time.
correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to necessarily go down this path, but I'm just, from my experience, providing
All right.
you.
Well,
the
I mean,
data.
let's say
Yeah.
the word. It tends to attract lower income people that don't live in
So
facilities.
I have zero issue with permitting those.
I-
I'm trying
I-
to align where these things I feel like would.
Yeah, I agree. I
All right,
have
as
No,
long as
just-
we do allow it somewhere in the town, I'm satisfied.
So you
Because
want
I
to
think
leave
is
it
a-
only in
it is a
NB1?
service that can
But I think
be-
there would be usefulness in the beach area because you
Yeah.
have a lot of out of town visitors with a lot of kids to do a lot of clothes.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just
So
providing a
maybe
warning.
one location on the mainland with MB1 and BB1.
Yeah, I'm with Ron on this.
Okay.
I think it.
And we can't, and I'm not objectionable to putting some sort of hour limitations.
I'm not, since I live on the beach, I don't see the need because all those houses, anybody who lives there has washer and dryers
except for the Continental.
for the Continental, but how many people the Continental hold?
Well,
I don't know.
We're not going to say this is not necessarily to happen, but it might. I mean, we don't have any business. How many businesses do we got there now? In BB1.
Oh, just a
Well,
handful.
Do we have any?
It's a handful.
It's
A
just
handful. So I thought we were, make sure I'm looking at the right area. So that's the pink area there, right? BB1. I thought before we're tasked with trying to figure out ways for more businesses, but
I
it
agree
seems
on
like
the
you
more
could put a small
businesses, but that would
laundromat
not
there
be
and
the
do
one I
okay,
would
but
pick.
So you guys just tell me what's the pleasure of the board. Is there a majority that want into BB1 with use standards?
Do we need a motion on this?
Yeah, well, we need to, this is an open discussion
Yeah.
and then we're going to, Wes is going to implement the things that we say.
That's right.
And that's all a part of, this is an open meeting.
Yeah.
We don't make a vote on each thing we
Okay.
say. It's,
We
I mean,
have a-
that's the way
Yes,
I'm leaning.
yes.
Allowing it in
And then-
BB1 with
I don't
No.
think it lends itself
Okay.
to the beach.
Mr.
well,
Chair.
if a hotel goes in Mud District, you can make an argument that a laundromat in the Mud District would be a good business,
Mhm.
a good
Yep.
service to provide.
So the proposal then would be to add P to BB1 and MUD with some use standards on hours
But not
That's where
the-
we're going?
So it's PS then.
or PS. Yeah, PS. Excuse me. PS.
So the majority, we've got 3 members that would like in the MUD and the BB1. Is that correct?
I brought up the mud.
Okay.
I
Hey.
can,
MUD seems like it's fine with everybody. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay. The question is BB1.
I'm for it.
I think we have a limited amount of business space on BB1 as it is. And I think something that would serve a majority is reasonable. Something that is more niche, like just for the Continental, I think you could make an argument that that isn't a service that that people are crying for.
Okay. So we've got a.
Well, I
We
mean,
got a tie.
I guess I'm a little confused, not confused, a little suspect on the downsides of laundromats, I guess. I mean, yes, people got to wait for their clothes to be done. I mean, I've taken trips to Europe, okay, 3-week trips where I have one bag,
Right.
which means when I park myself in a little, I go to towns and try to
Yep.
learn Belgium to teach me how to put money in the laundromat machines.
Yeah.
So
We,
as a traveler, they're kind of handy to have around every now and then.
I think it's different here. I mean, you go to Key West, and yes, we have to, from our hotel, we got to go find a laundromat. That to me is a different setting, and the need, I think, is greater in Belgium or in
Right.
European travel through hostels.
But again, there may be no businessman that ever comes up with this idea, but there may be one that comes up with this idea by not giving them some chance of doing it. I mean,
They've
If
been
a businessman going to have to find a need first before they invest in the space and the machinery to do it. So if there's no need because everybody,
there. I don't know if Lisa has a position on this.
The price tag of that property over there would never lend itself to a laundromat.
Good point.
There's nobody that's going to go into business with a laundromat on MBB1. It's just not profitable. There's no way it would be profitable ever.
Yeah, but is it our job to decide on their behalf whether something's going to be profitable or not? I mean, I get a little nervous when we get in that.
Not necessarily.
That
I think Lisa's
business.
maybe saying that if you do permit it in the BB1, it's unlikely to ever come to fruition.
right, which I think everybody agrees, it's somewhat unlikely, but by not putting it in there, then it's not possible.
You could always use special use.
But
The
why
standards.
do that? I mean, because then if somebody, why would be the no answer on a special use then?
Can it be an accessory use for like the island market or something like that
Um,
without us allowing it?
Yeah, I don't. I guess technically we could put it as an accessory in the BB1.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, again,
Okay.
speaking hypothetically, I could see someone doing this as a loss leader to get people in their room. They're going to be hanging out there for 2 hours. Okay, let me put in some pinball machines and let them have at it, and that's where I make my money.
All right, Wes, you just said something about an accessory use.
You can.
That can be
We could add it to the accessory use
in
table.
that section of the
in-
table
in-
3.1.
Yes, sir. In BB1.
All right,
Does that satisfy
yeah,
the
it's
board?
fine. Ron?
Ron?
I lost you. Put it where now?
Special use.
Adding it as an accessory use as opposed to a primary use as we're
In which district?
BB1.
In BB1.
Yeah.
And we're adding it as a PS in
Yep,
MB1 and MUD
that's correct.
with the use standard, and we're going to put a use standard on hours in there?
That's what the S is for, right?
Hours being like 8 to 9 or I don't know, something like that. Got it? Am I understanding right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Jerry? How
I'm
you-
still against the idea of having that on the island, even as an accessory. I think it doesn't lend itself to the island, the purpose of the island.
Well, but again, we're saying it needs to be an accessory use to an
So,
existing
still.
facility as opposed to a
And
primary
go
use.
to Lisa's point. The market, does the market have any room?
Well,
There's
that's
only-
why I was
I
tempted to suggest it because I agree with Lisa that it's the real estate values there are
No, it's,
not going to allow it or not
Again,
going to.
personally, I'm against it.
And we
Even
have,
as a
we have
special
3 that
use.
are for it as an accessory use.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
All right, and for everyone's edification, Wes is putting all this together. He's putting all of our hodgepodge together, and it's
Correct.
going to come back to us again.
That's right.
So there's nothing that can't be rethought. if you
Correct.
will, as we look at it
Again,
again in its totality.
that's correct.
Fantastic.
All right, Ron, did you have anything? You
Nope. Move on.
moved us from dry cleaning into laundromats and
Turn the page.
Okay, I've turned the page. Hotels, motels. I had a question about allowing it in MB2 as a special use with standards. And I don't know why I made that note. I wrote PS, in other words, permitted use in MB2.
Okay. Yeah,
But-
just a quick note. We're fine with golf courses. I know Jerry did a lot of work on that, and
No, I think it's,
we don't see anything in there that needs further discussion or amendment.
I
I'm fine with
I
it.
did not.
no.
Okay.
Good.
All right. And driving ranges. Now, the one thing I will say about driving ranges is we are going to get, I'm concerned that 11 p.m. is a little late,
No, but that-
particularly with lighting.
But that's in
Let's-
the,
Let's get to,
yeah, when we get to the
Okay.
use standards, we can just,
discuss
it
it.
might be an
Yeah.
item of discussion.
So,
All right, but yeah, circle that, Richard. We'll talk about the times when we get
Okay.
into the.
so that's L
Yep.
subsection C.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Hotels.
All right. I had question as to why it's a special use. I had thought it would be more of a permitted use in MB2, but I don't know.
That I think that's perfectly fine. It was a special use prior, so I didn't change it. But unless there's an objection from the board, obviously it can be made into a PS.
I mean, we know where MB2 is. It's all along the road right here, so it's
Right.
not as if it's.
In that upper corner.
You're correct. Yes, in the upper corner by Georgetown Road, and,
Right.
and
Which Talk of the
904.
Town. Yeah.
Across from Talk of the Town. Yeah,
Oh, across from.
Yeah, that lot across.
yeah. Talk of the Town's not within our area.
So that's a location you could.
Yeah.
Actually, wouldn't be a bad location.
I think it'd be a great location. But it's-
Now, do
So-
we
so
want
we're
to?
saying-
Can we let's deal with that? Do we want to change it to a PS for MB2?
I don't have a problem.
I'd say affirmative.
Sounds good.
Now there's nothing in here on limitation of
I get-
room volume.
Well, we'd have to, we can get to the use standard. That's 38M. I didn't read it.
That's correct. There is not.
On the permitting part, though, why do we have the SS for MR3? I guess. Yeah, that's right. Okay, never mind. I'm with you. I caught up.
Okay.
I mean, it seems to me, are we going to set limitations on number of floors, number of units?
Well, We can. I mean, when we get to that, we can set. I mean, your height is going to restrict the number of floors.
Got it.
But if there is a number of units per acre that are something that you want to consider, we can absolutely include that as a use standard.
Can we get some guidance in terms of, because to me, I mean, it's kind of abstract, a typical Comfort Inn or a typical Hilton Garden Inn or a typical Courtyard. I mean, how many units? I mean, typically those are 2 to 3 story
Mm-hmm.
buildings, but how many units? And I'm asking,
Sure.
because I think those are the kinds of hotel properties that would be most likely.
Sure.
And I think what we want to avoid is, somebody coming in here and we have to wrestle with, 6 floors, 300 units.
But there would never be 6 floors because
Okay.
it would
The
be
Provided that we deal properly with the for each 2 feet you go
That's right.
back off the, and I'm a
That-
proponent of.
Yeah.
So,
Because
but
I never say never. I mean,
well, so yeah, I
the
mean, someone
Regency's got 5 stories. So.
sure someone could propose a CZ,
A
but
CZ project
but
could be a
but
tower.
we'll get to the dimensional standards too. I mean, you do still allow up to 50 in the MB1 and MB2, but even at 50, you would be very hard pressed to get 6 stories. Plus, you're going to have to comply with the setback limitation there, and the
And
MB2
parking.
is going to be very
And
tight.
parking.
I
And
agree. I
parking.
think we can
Impervious
deal with that
coverage.
when we get into dimensional standards.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Because height, and I've got some strong feelings on
Right.
on setback
And we'll talk about
increasing
that
heights and.
Next meeting, assuming that we'll get there.
Now, in that dimensional discussion, are we going to?
You get
Is that a venue to also talk about number of units?
we can't. I mean, if you want me to come back with a recommendation for a number of, once we get to that section, let's bring that up. That will be section M, 38M.
Right. Because, I mean, we have proposals in the wind that would put a 150 unit hotel
Okay.
in a certain area.
Okay.
Is that the,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is that a
Sure.
proper scale, or are our eyes bigger than our stomach?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Under marinas, we have a permitted use with standards
Mhm.
under MB2. Um, you know, we all know where MB2 is,
Yep.
and it's not waterfront.
Right.
I just don't see the need to have. You know, you might want to put maritime rentals there. I can see that because that's non-motorized.
Sure.
You know, somebody wants to rent a kayak, but to have it in MB2 for marinas, I think is just implausible.
Sounds good.
No problem.
And maritime rentals, I have an issue with that, and I'm going to do something that I said I didn't want to do. When we go to maritime rentals, under the definition, it says the use involved in the rental service and repair of watercraft and trailering devices. And I'll deal with that definition when we get to that part, because I think we need to limit that to maritime trailering, not motorcycle trailering
Mhm.
or other thing, cargo trailering. But it's non-motorized only, and does that mean you can't work on something? Because it talks about repair of watercraft.
In the definition, there's
Yeah,
use
'cause-
standards too. Let's see where the definition is.
Yeah, you'd have to go to 3.80.
So there was no. This whole thing was a bit of a mess because we didn't have any definition except of.
I think the way it's written, they could work on power boats
Mhm.
here because it does allow that. It's routine maintenance.
Right.
Um,
But they can't.
so I guess we can deal with that when we get to maritime rentals.
So that's right. And I'll just say, you know, at our last meeting, we discussed consolidating auto and maritime repair.
Yes.
So what we can do is just make clear that this is only for rental of non-motorized
Okay.
watercraft.
And you can
period.
repair non-motorized there too. I mean, you can patch a
Okay.
kayak.
Okay.
But I don't want it to be understood that you could repair an outboard motor there.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is microbreweries. I just can't see why a microbrewery would not be permitted in mud.
Mud, right?
Yes.
Got it.
So that should be a PS also.
Yep. Okay.
And sort of likewise, small thing, manufacturing limited. I see we have a new definition.
So,
A quick thing on microbreweries. Do we want to put some time limits on that?
Well, that would be in the standards. Is it in the standards?
that would be when we got to standards. On
It's not in there.
340.
It's not in there now, so we can consider it.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess we only allowed it manufacturing limited in MB1, not an MB2. But if you have an artesian style manufacturing, you get MB2 also, I guess. Yeah, it's all right, I guess. I mean, everybody thinks about the one along the road here. I always got that big chunk up in the corner up there that's laying dormant.
Which one?
Georgetown Road in 904.
That's also MB2, and MB2 seems to get quite limited.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I also
Because I
brought
think
up a point about having our gateway regulations extend up into that as well.
And
So I
we'll
think that's
talk a
important.
little bit about that. We still got to figure out how to meld together the building design standards and
Yeah,
overlay.
okay, not to wander. Yes.
Miniature golf, right?
Were you?
Well, I mean, we allow the artesian manufacturing in MB2. okay, which is this road here and that little corner piece, but we don't allow limited manufacturing. And it seemed the differences were somewhat, okay. I'm just thinking, should we expand that a little, and give MB2 also that limited manufacturing if somebody wants to put an electronics shop or something, but we can move on.
All right. You said move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just wanted to hear yours.
Well, I mean, it's a
You're getting
thought,
like
but
me.
everybody's going to say, well,
Under museums, I'm on page
Let me go back to
3-20.
Miniature.
Mhm.
Miniature golf, we're not gonna allow miniature golf courses anyplace, either NB1 or NB2. I know we have one that's been kind of in disrepair.
That would be the commercial outdoor recreation.
Like I said, we'll handle it when we get there.
No. We talked about that last meeting, but if they, I mean, that one, if I recall, outdoor commercial recreation outdoor is only allowed as a special use
Okay, that's
in the
fine.
MB2 and the mud district.
That's fine.
Okay.
Museums. We have the pleasure of having the Old Bridge Historical Society in
Mhm.
MR2
Mhm. Okay.
as a museum. I'd hate to restrict their
Future expansion.
yeah.
How big is that facility? I mean, is it like just an outdoor? There's just a bridge sitting there.
Yeah, but they're talking. I don't want to let something out of the bag.
Okay. Well, so how do you feel that the town should permit something like that? Imagine that it's not the bridge, but some other museum that wants to come into the MR2. Do you think that the
So
town
is
should?
this a situation where conditional rezoning could come into play? I mean, I know this is before the town council and it hasn't been approved, but
Potentially, but if there's size thresholds that are put into place in residential districts, then it could require a general
But
rezoning. for-
conditional zoning is so subjective too. I think
Yeah.
it gives us great ability to look at site-specific
Yep.
information.
Yep.
That's why I'm excited about
Mhm.
it. But
yeah, me too.
I just didn't want to make. And you're right. It could be a museum that glorifies witchcraft or
Whatever it is,
or
it's
motors-
something that you didn't
a
want.
motorcycle museum, which
yeah.
people don't want.
Yeah.
You know, it can be. But
Golf
what
club-
do they do right
golf club
now? It's
museum.
saying that they cannot
Exist.
They cannot exist. So right now they're non-conforming. Well, I don't even know what they are.
Is it technically a museum? What
They call
is that
themselves
ever
that.
even been permitted as the use?
Right now,
That was before your time.
There's a
probably.
sign above the
I
door
had
that says
I had a
museum.
meeting with Ann yesterday, and right now I think where what is it? Is it technically the old bridge part sits on now is actually
It's owned by Holden.
it's actually on a commercial lot.
That's what I thought.
However,
that
if they
maybe that
wanted
got
to
rezoned.
expand,
Yeah.
the two lots that they own are zoned MR2.
MR2.
But they're
yes.
directly adjacent to that commercial.
Yes.
Correct.
So they would need to do really what they should do is rezone it to the appropriate designation. I mean that's
Okay.
right. That's
Okay.
really what they should do, rather
Okay.
than create the exception for them and then potentially.
Is that difficult?
Well,
But
depends on
they'd
if
come before us.
they would. But if they did that,
Okay.
they technically could also do a CZ attached to it and whole host of other things.
Okay, move into the next one, mail service. I thought some sort of a mail service office
It's like a UPS store we taking here? Or
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
at
There's a
MB2.
definition for it. Should be.
Well, I couldn't find, where is the
Are
definition?
you talking about mail services such in a post office?
Yeah, there is a new definition. for
Where?
it.
I apologize if I didn't include one, but I thought I had
There
one.
isn't an old one, I know. Is it under services mail, maybe?
Or maybe there's an old one.
Yeah, I don't see it.
I don't see it.
I thought I put one in here. It was in your previous mail services is a commercial.
Yes.
It was in your sorry, my
Yeah, it was
apologies.
the last homework assignment you gave us.
October
Yeah.
20th, new definitions: a commercial business which conducts the retail sale of stationery products provides packaging and mail services.
Yeah.
Both U.S.
It's on page 7-9.
and provides mailbox for lease.
Yeah.
Certainly, yeah. I mean,
I mean, I would think MB2 and BB1
Right.
Sure.
Yes,
would be appropriate. I
Got it.
would think the mud district also, but okay, you've got it. in the
it
mud
is
district.
in the mud.
it's in the
Got
mud
it. You got it
district.
in there.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that's because I mean, right now the nearest UPS store is in Charlotte,
Sure.
and I don't think it would take much to convince them to park a
Would you just
satellite
drive by the
store.
one in Ocean Isle Beach?
Ocean Isle.
Yeah.
Oh,
drive
you're
by
right.
one, as you
Okay.
know.
Still, that's
MB2 and
MB2
I
and
don't think
BB1.
it'd take much to
Okay.
convince UPS to drop a satellite.
So we're going to add a P to MB2 and BB1.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
And the definition is suitable, we determined, right?
I thought it was, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, great.
We're down at parking lots. We have
Well,
a golf.
On Parks and
course.
Recreation,
Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm okay, but because there's no, well, I'm assuming this is like a government function, there's no lighting restrictions.
yes, there are.
There will
Where?
be that would be in your
For lighting.
that'd be in your
Lighting
lighting
ordinance.
standards, which you'll get. So they would any use would have to comply with the lighting standards
Mhm.
in the development standards.
We have lighting standards now.
Well, I mean lighting restrictions.
Yes, lighting restriction
Restrictions.
standards.
I mean,
yes.
we like have lighting restrictions like on other things.
Yes,
In
it'd
your-
be the same thing.
It'd be the same thing in your existing ordinance.
So think
Because
about-
to me that would be I mean, the town can decide to put a park someplace, and people probably love the park, or pickleball courts or something.
Mhm.
But then you got the light issue. How
Yes.
where are the lights
So-
saying?
But
how
they're
bright-
saying there are
there
like
are there's
restrictions.
Because it would have to go through some kind of site plan approval.
What is it? Height and luminar? It's
Yes.
not luminar. it's luminar.
Illuminations.
Yeah, it's in
And direction.
in your current Article 9.
Yeah.
That will be folded in. That's outdoor lighting, and so my hope is to give you the revised section of that next meeting, and then we can talk about if,
All right.
if there's carve
well because like even Ocean Isle Beach over there, they have a nice park. Everybody likes it, but the neighbors hate the lights.
Yeah.
There
So
was some controversy over
even the UDO now has lighting restrictions and standards that people must meet.
and we feel those are sufficient.
So right now it
if
says
there's an
I've
adjacent
read 'em, like-
residential,
But we're going to come on those.
okay.
that's right.
So I
We
guess
will get to those. There are specific lighting standards at present for outdoor recreational
We're
facilities.
permitting parks everywhere.
okay, yeah.
And that's because we want to encourage development to, like, for an example, where Birdwatch is now placed.
Sure.
It would have encouraged possibly the developer to dedicate a couple of those lots to a little park.
Right. Well, and if you look at the underneath parks and recreational facilities, the 1, 2, 3, 4 uses
Mhm.
were all scattered about in your table. That
Yes.
were all various iterations of parks.
You just,
I've
No,
tried to
yeah.
make sense of, or for whatever reason, public parks were a special use. But you could have open space in parks as a permitted use by right throughout the majority of the district. You could also have public children playgrounds as a permitted. So I was trying to make sense of what is the intent of the town. I believe the intent of the town is to have as many parks as
yes.
possible.
Does everybody agree to that?
Yeah.
Under parking lots, we've removed the parking lots from the residential areas.
Hmm.
And we have parking lots in MR2, MR3 now, but are you saying that they're accessory to the golf courses that are there already?
This would just be for a standalone parking lot.
This would be if someone bought a lot and turned it into a parking lot
Got it. Okay, got it.
as a principle.
Like the song.
Yeah.
I'm turning the page to 3-21.
I'm
Everybody,
Salvage
Ready to move?
yard.
hey, that was my next one. Do we have a need for that?
I know. Well,
Ye-
there's a little confusion in my mind on the use standard.
Oh, no.
Are we talking salvage yards or storage yards?
No.
I think we don't want salvage yards
You don't.
unless you say we have to have one.
You do.
Okay.
We do?
I mean, you need to
But like-
put it somewhere in your table. Same reason you need to put adult business and tattoo parlor and these other
Can we
uses.
then not allow it anywhere?
Well,
No.
You
There's got to be a reason for it.
that's right.
Right.
Has to be a reason. It's a special use.
And then, do we or should we have we mixed salvage yards, any non-residential property used for the storage, collection, and so really we're talking about both. Or that salvage yard name in the table means salvage and or storage yard, because the definition says it's a storage yard too,
You also have a self-storage
Separate.
use, separate,
which is storage facility self-service.
that's right. That I've tried to clarify the two. It was a little bit confused in your current ordinance as to what was what.
And the salvage yard has to be 500 feet from any residentially zoned lot.
That's correct.
So that would greatly,
Where does it say that?
under T, page 3-43. It's under the uses, the description of a salvage yard. 3-43. T,
Okay.
T is in Tom, it's number 1.
So that would be a salvage yard or a storage yard that's not self-service would be under that section.
That's right.
If it's a
definitions.
self-service, it's under storage facility self-service.
That's right. That's your common.
And that's in the commercial side?
That's your typical where you've got a
Yeah. Self-storage.
yeah.
And the use standard for that, it was the ones under the commercial?
That's under 38W. The use
W.
standard for the self-storage facility.
Now, this doesn't get us tangled up in any of the maintenance yards for the golf course.
Nope, that's a totally different thing.
But where does that? Okay, I got it. So that one we're going as an SSS. Okay, so we're allowing the self-service, use store places as a special use permit in MB1, MB2, and BB1, and the MUD under those conditions.
Yep, and we get to the point too that
And
town
only-
administrator brought up that in BB1, it's expensive real estate. Is it really
Should we just-
feasible?
Should we just cross out of there completely too?
I mean, it's unlikely to be there. Not to mention the flood hazard issues there with storing with us.
So should we just take that SS out of there?
You
completely?
can if we've made it, or if we made it to that point, if we're past salvage yard, everybody good on salvage yard? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. good.
Yes.
Yeah, I understand why
All right,
it has to
yes.
be.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Um,
So
And then,
we're
well,
jumping.
I had the same question about shooting range if we're trying to do this in order
Okay.
on page 3-22. Shooting range in MB1. Now, yeah, maybe an indoor shooting range, outdoor shooting range.
They'd have to rezone some property. They'd have to rezone into that somewhere else in the town to do it. But yeah, as a map currently stands, could not do it. But similar to salvage yard, we got to put it somewhere. I mean, there's been specific case law about this one in particular.
I mean, you also have the whole thing about I don't think you can fire a firearm off.
You can't discharge a firearm, but if
Where?
you have a shooting range within the municipality.
I got to walk across the border?
Yes, I mean,
I got to be an ETJ?
unless you're protecting your life, limb, and property.
I got to be an ETJ?
Um,
It's close.
Again, there has been some very specific case law on this that the legislator's been adamant about. So,
all right, I can't fight City Hall.
right.
And that case law suggests that we can or cannot do what?
It means that you need to have a place for this use.
Now,
Okay.
would it?
As I
I don't want to
suspected.
stir up a whole hornet's nest here, but could you move it to the RI?
You could. Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry, say it again?
Could you move it to not residential, institutional RI1 as a special use?
Get it out of MB1. Take it out of MB1 and put it
Put it in
into,
RI1.
That's a good point.
where is RI1?
RI, it's institutional. It's town hall.
Environment. Technically, it's a use somewhere.
yeah,
in the town park.
What's this little corner on Hickory is pink? Is that the same too?
Yeah, I mean, you could do that. You usually,
Yeah, that's the town park.
That's,
and it's the boat ramp.
it calls into question a little bit more your allowance for it, but yeah. Yeah.
There's also
Okay.
this pink section.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. I
Town
think it's probably
administrator
best
says
to leave it in
Leave,
NB1.
leave it alone.
Okay.
Um,
So we're going to let sleeping dogs lie there? Is
Yep.
that that?
did we finish up with storage facility self-service?
I had a question on the storage facility part,
Mhm.
and it alluded to something that Wes was getting at. I don't know if y'all heard him. It would be interesting to see a self-storage facility in the BB1 because they would have to be elevated.
Mhm. So yeah, and I think they were saying maybe strike that,
Flood restriction.
Yeah.
Okay.
strike that use.
So get rid of it from BB1.
Yeah.
And then just make sure that you guys are comfortable with continuing to make that a special use. I mean, I don't know if you want to open the door for these to be permitted as a by right in MB1 or MUD, but they've historically been a special use. Okay. All right.
I was confused by utility service large, utility service small.
Okay.
First of all, but we need definitions that are appropriate for
Yeah,
them.
it's in here.
Well, yeah, I thought they were weak.
Well, the smallest 200 square feet or less. So that was the unweak part of it in my mind. It's certainly defining if you're over if you're 201 square feet, you're in the large area.
And this is for a structure, and
Right.
so you can see you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 utility type uses in your ordinance at present. A mess. So I'm trying to figure out how to handle this so that we're not just allowing them by right everywhere, but there's a cap to where if you've got a structure that is of a certain size or whatever it is, that it triggers that special use so that folks are aware of what's going on. The Board of Adjustment can attach conditions to it, etc. Maybe it needs to be bigger than 200 square feet. I don't know, but that was where starting point was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's only
10
Pretty
by
small.
20.
15 by 15, not even a 15 by 15 structure.
Right. It's very
It's 10 by
small.
20.
So
Yeah.
this is one that I was going to encourage some additional discussion on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the number of two, you mean just really on the number?
Anything that you guys,
Really?
if you want to modify the definitions, if you want to pull out a specific type of utility,
What I didn't like is the fact that it seems to prevent me from putting in a well on my property for irrigation and under small.
No. Why would it?
mm-mm.
No.
Is that, I mean, that use would be well within the 200 square foot.
Yeah, but it's saying that I need a
Special.
yeah, I need well, it's permitted with use standards.
I mean, I don't.
That's
I
not
mean,
your
for-
private well's not
When
a
I first
utility.
looked at this, I was looking at it as being SS, but it isn't. It's PS.
I don't. I mean, that would be an accessory to your use. The intent is not that you got to come pull a permit here for this. I mean, we can make it clear that you
I have to
don't.
pull a permit to put a well in, but I should be allowed to do it.
Sure. I mean, I don't even think that the town has zero issue with you. Right? And then I
Because
don't
it
think
would
the
be
town even wants it.
on your property, only for your property, not distributing water elsewhere.
That's right.
Correct. You're not
and-
providing services to your neighbor. If you surprise service, if you decided to sell your water
okay.
to,
That's right.
to your
Never
two
mind.
adjacent
that-
neighbors,
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That
That
makes
makes sense.
And
yeah.
and thank you, Ron, because it does. So
Yeah.
utility services large is services of a regional nature.
Yeah.
Utility services small, necessary to support development within the immediate vicinity, involve minor structures, etc. I don't. It may be that the 200 square feet needs to be enlarged.
That seems about right to me.
I'm withdrawing my question.
Okay.
Even it's
Because I don't know if you want to unnecessarily hinder someone, but that's.
I mean, I guess I don't know where it could be. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, the well obviously doesn't seem like you'd want to, but you could share with your neighbors, I guess. I guess if you don't charge, it's not. But what about like a ground-mounted solar panel? Could you say, well, we're going to put one on one property and 3 houses are going to share it?
Well, if it's over 200 square feet, then it would require a special use permit.
Right.
Well, and you can't just put a commercial entity charging for services,
Yeah, but okay.
either with or in a residential
Right.
neighborhood. It's,
You might be able to do it if you're not charging.
well, you didn't say anything, but that happens all the time. So
Well,
Well, in
You can't monitor
our
that.
area, you can actually sell back your excess
yeah.
electricity
Yeah.
to.
see how that works.
So then,
But you may want to. Okay. So
does
the
that
question
make it a
on that, I think
commercial use?
I
mean,
think
that-
it's fine the way it is with the SSs and
True.
the PSs. We do maybe need it. Is the 200 a little too small?
You're
That's my
Because
question.
15 by 15 would be 225.
Right.
So 400 square feet.
220 by 20.
20 by 20 would be 400 square feet.
That's big.
But that's a garage size, right?
Mhm.
An old-fashioned single-car garage or small garage was 20 by 20, right? I don't want to go over that. I think it's probably somewhere under 400 and maybe a little over 200.
I was happy with the 200
Okay.
because I'd rather not.
But we go like
Make
say
it easy.
225 for 15 by 15 building.
I could be persuaded for 25 square feet, but I just thought
Yeah.
200
And
is
so, in my mind, these things need to be permitted, but it needs, when it gets to a certain point, it can go through the Board of Adjustment so everybody knows what's going on, and then appropriate conditions can be attached to it.
Does that satisfy you?
Yeah.
Yes.
And all I'm saying, well, I'm thinking about is the reasonableness. If we become unreasonable on something,
What do you want to change the 200 to?
I don't know
225.
for sure, but
I mean, when I think utility services, and correct me if I'm wrong, Wes, if I'm going off the map here, is that you have the electrical service across the street that's tucked away, nobody can see, that BMC regulates. The small would be, I
You
guess
have
your pump stations on the island.
yeah, the B Brunswick
if-
Public
if the-
Utilities has the small pump
Pump
stations.
stations would, they're not bigger than 200 square feet.
Right.
Well, unless they put
Well,
a generator on.
And unless they put a generator, unless they put the encapsulation around it,
Yeah.
there's one on the island that would be
Yes.
trigger a special use permit.
You
Correct.
know what size that is?
That's
over
It's a whole
200.
house.
200
That's over
Way
200
over?
square feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I do think that is worthy of the special use.
Yes.
Well, it was needed.
Yes.
Otherwise, they ain't going to have
right.
sewers.
But
That's
correct.
right.
But I mean, those are really the only two. I mean, this is not telecommunication facilities.
This
This
is
is
not
multiple
wireless.
towers.
This
You know,
All right, Ron, what size do you want to put on here? Because
I mean,
we can look at it again as it comes
the
back.
20 by 20. You know, would that satisfy general pump station with the generator? Because some of these look like Taj Mahals in other jurisdictions.
Well, that's because there's been oversight.
Well,
Yeah.
can we get a quick population study in terms of, okay, what's the size of the various
Yeah,
installs?
I guess for me, I don't anticipate that on the island necessarily that you're going to
Mm.
have a need for additional stations unless something drastic happens in terms of what's permitted out there in the future. But this would be mainly, mainland type.
Our only stumbling block, I think, was size.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Do
right.
you want to say 250? Does that satisfy you?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to move forward.
Sure. Let's make it 250.
All right.
We can take a final look at it later sometime.
Okay.
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 That's fine.
As we turn the page, we get over to veterinary services and animal boarding. I know this can be sticky, but animal boarding is something that is done. It's I know 3 or 4 people that do it in their houses,
That's a home occupation.
and as long as they don't have employees
Mhm.
that come in,
That's right.
that would be fine. But when you go, I guess what I was looking at is the 3.8Y.
Well, why not in mud, I guess, is
Yeah, I had a question
Is it-
mark in mud.
Sure, they can be.
and And nobody wants to board any animals apparently on the island, right?
Well, private people can do
Would
it.
this be, I just want to clarify, this would be animal boarding and associated with veterinary services or?
Either
or.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be a vet.
But there's a lot of vets that also will have a kennel operation as well. It's a kennel operation that's a problematic thing. I mean,
All right.
necessary, but just
Well, the outdoor portion of it.
that's right.
If they move everybody indoor,
Even
For
indoors, you can smell those things from a ways away. So, so mud. It is. That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
I thought it should be
PS.
the mud as well. Under wireless, and I don't know that we're going to really deal with it here because it is coming up under Article 6, but substantial modification under that wireless heading in Table 3.1. That to me was just, I didn't even know what it meant.
There'll be a definition for it, and I don't know if I put one in here, but that there's statutory rules for wireless now that we need to get in
And
here.
we haven't dealt with that yet.
That's right.
And those are North Carolina statutory or
There's
state?
exemptions.
County.
North Carolina.
Mhm.
So see if you'll see the one below that says wireless telecom, co-location or co-located small or micro wireless. There's certain exemptions for how those are permitted.
Right.
That we basically cannot. Local governments can't put a stop to them. They
Yeah.
put standards on them, but
I mean,
that's it.
I've expressed my concerns about this before, but I'll reiterate it. I don't think people realize that, God forbid, the power goes down in an emergency situation.
Mhm.
I would say about 25% on this island are going to discover that their cellular coverage in their home is not so great.
Right.
Wi-Fi's down, so their phone is basically a brick.
Yep.
So we need to, explore how we can, and I know the tower they were going to build over by the old colony is sitting there because of stormwater issues.
But that will eventually
Work itself out.
work itself out. And then a new tower has been allowed by our water tower.
Right, and that's
Or-
consumer
well-
cellular. I'm not sure that's going to really increase.
no, that was US Cellular.
Yeah,
So that's in RI1, right?
Yes.
yeah. So anyway, this
And
is,
Pete, that hasn't been allowed yet. The town council just agreed to lease a little piece of property, but it hasn't been allowed.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm
Thank
sorry,
you.
say it
Thanks
again,
for that
Liz.
clarification.
Liz, say that again, I'm sorry.
So there's been a gentleman that has approached the town about wanting to lease land on that the town owns to put a wireless telecommunication tower. I have yet to get a application for the special use permit process to begin.
Right,
Town has agreed, the council has agreed to lease them the land, but it still has to go through proper application process
Through the board,
through the board.
Board of Adjustment.
now,
AF1,
is he an independent,
I have no idea. Like again,
or is he associated with any of the tower leasing companies like American
think
Tower?
he's-
We don't
think
know
it's T-Mobile.
his relationship.
He's
but
U.S. Cellular.
yeah.
He's representing U.S.
Okay.
Cellular.
All right,
AF1, our only AF1 is over there by me on Peakwood and stuff, right, Skyler?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
So
the
it's
only
got-
FN?
Yes. Yes. It's contiguous. Peakwood, Schuler.
Sky.
Access could be off Ocean Harbor.
Mhm.
Is there a question in that?
Well, I just wondering, I'm thinking about adding SS to the AF1 there, even though those folks in there wouldn't be happy about it, but
Isn't
it's
that
certainly an area that doesn't get any self-service at the moment.
you? Isn't
yeah.
that- Isn't that you?
Yeah, that's me, right?
Yeah, I mean,
That's really nice.
it's.
Which is why I text you more than call you, because I wouldn't be able to
Yeah.
talk to you. So,
I mean, the data on
But
landlines
that-
is, I mean, 65 and
in
above,
there, in there.
1 out of every 4
Mess
households
of these
does
things.
not have a landline. And those people are going to be the ones that
so I guess,
need emergency services,
Eight-
God
so
forbid power goes
ATMC's
down.
not putting in landlines anymore. I
no.
don't
So I
think.
guess I'm throwing out for consideration adding an SS in this section for AF1.
SS.
Yeah, like we have for
Under
the
wireless telecommunications.
Right.
Yes,
Are we bound by general statute with all this, Wes? To
And,
allow kid-
for the larger facilities, you can regulate them however you see fit for now. The smaller ones, you have to let them go where they want to go.
All right, so Ron, I'm going to bow to your local knowledge on AF1.
Well, I
For
know.
appropriateness.
Well, AF1, you got to have 1 acre lots to build a house on, right?
Anyway,
Yeah, I mean that's.
So we're talking about the folks there on Peakwood and
I don't believe that would be supported by the tenets of the land use plan, but you guys can certainly put that in there if you want. You know, you've got but over near AF1, you do have a corner there that has MB1 in it that would presumably serve the AF1 portion.
you're talking about the corner between Shoreline and
talking about
Beach
Resort Circle area.
next
Yeah.
to it. The open where the hotel used to be.
Yep.
The corner of Beach and
North Shore and Beach.
Yeah,
Shoreline and Beach.
Shoreline and Beach.
Right.
I call it Dead Man's Curve, but yes.
Yes.
Well, there's talk about changing that, too, right?
That would be in my mind, the appropriate
Moving
place
the road over.
for a tower to go. And I believe where the current one is proposed, right?
Well, it's
No,
right. It's right
next
near
to it.
MB1.
Yeah. Yeah, right over here.
It's
Yeah,
that
so
same part of the world.
I mean, say that's permitted, they're going to be fine. They're going to have plenty of service over there. I don't
Yeah,
think.
but it's not going to happen
but
because of the pond.
well, that's a whole nother thing. But the reality is, I think that it's better to. You can open the door to allow this in AF1. There's a room full of folks out the door for this to be permitted in MB1. AF1, I fear for the Board of Adjustment's health and welfare.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, there's a lot of, and
It's
I
a
understand that,
NIMBY.
Yes, that's
having
right.
at a wireless carrier for 15 years, there's a lot of local, oh, we don't want a tower.
Yep.
Power goes down, emergency services, my husband is having heart palpitations, my phone's a brick. Who gets sued?
Look,
Okay?
I think that you're allowing them in the appropriate places. That stormwater thing, you've permitted it to be there, but the stormwater thing is unrelated. They need to
Right.
rectify that issue. The tower will eventually go there, and that whole area will be served.
So let me just get it straight in my mind. Say some company, XYZ Cellular, purchases a lot in AF1, 1 acre lot.
Yep.
They're bigger than that, I think, all of them. And says, right now they can't do anything with it. But if we made this change and put an SS there, they say, I could put a tower there now if I come to the Board of Adjustment.
That's right.
Okay. And then the Board of Adjustment have their hearing.
I think that the Board of Adjustment would have grounds to deny that request, given that it is so out of character with
Because
the
of the land use
adjacency
plan.
and because of the land use plan.
And not to mention all of AF1 is waterfront property.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not saying that they would, but I think that they would have a much greater case than in the MB1, where it is more appropriate.
No, isn't some of those lots are, well, okay.
Well,
Okay,
some of
never
it on
mind.
The other side, sure,
Well,
but
I
the
mean-
majority of it is.
The
Never
other,
mind.
the other issue here is
I mean, I guess I was just trying to come up with a way to improve our
yeah,
cell coverage without pissing off everybody, I guess, but it appears to be not possible. So
It's not.
Okay.
Ron, I respect your. I'm just
I was just trying to come up with some little openings where
MB1.
maybe something would be possible or
it should,
doable.
it should go in that corner. They need to get whatever they need to get figured out.
I mean,
with the
5G
stormwater.
towers are going to have to be more of them and closer. They tend to be smaller.
Now, which they may qualify as the micro or co-location, which means that on a telephone pole, you're allowed to put those on top of the
Right.
telephone pole,
right.
and the town has to permit
So-
those. That's a very different thing than allowing a monopole tower.
Right. Well,
I
the
mean,
issue,
we already don't get radar coverage over there, so
yeah.
lack of cell ain't going to hurt us, I guess. So we won't know the tornado's coming anyway.
I mean, and again, in terms of providing some
We
industry
consider
knowledge,
moving
the
out of
people
that.
that build
Nah,
towers
I
Are
just
gonna
stick my head
wanna-
out the window and see what's going on.
are going to want to have enough capacity that can service all carriers. because carriers don't own towers anymore. They rent space from people who build them on their behalf. So if you want to get full coverage across all 3 networks now, it's a fairly substantial structure. They're not going to sign up for, oh, we can put a tower on a telephone pole. That they're not going to have an appetite for that.
What do you suggest, Richard?
What I suggest is we need to get someone in here that can give us some guidance in terms of, if you want full coverage, this is where the towers need to go, and start from there.
Well, but our mission here is to rewrite the UDO to, I don't want to say protect, but to reinforce our
Right.
land use plan. It isn't to make the world a better place for cell phone operations.
Right.
And it's,
Which I understand, and unfortunately, there's not an awareness that, in the past you had a landline, you pick up the phone, emergency services knows where you are like that. With wireless services, it's more complicated. So, and I had a particular incident with my mother-in-law. She had a health situation on 904, and GPS couldn't give emergency services a location. Almost cost her life. So, the lack of isn't just about satisfying the profitable needs of the carriers. I see it more as providing a service that I think there's a vacuum right now. And I've talked to Ken about this, and he agrees. He says, yeah, you're right. If power goes down in an emergency situation, emergency services people are going to be served because all of the carriers have provided them with equipment to do that. But the local population is going to find itself in some situations that are not.
Absolutely, there needs to be better service, but that's a separate project.
Okay.
Than what
Well, how
we're-
do we, and I
That-
get what
that's a
Pete's
separate
saying.
project.
I mean,
well, we can't just solve that problem by
Yeah.
allowing them everywhere.
That's
Yeah.
right.
You know,
That's a
it's-
separate
yeah.
project. If that's an initiative that the town wants to take on, or have a presentation by emergency services to say, this is where we have coverage, direct town staff to reach out to carriers and say, are you?
I think
That's an
fair.
RCCP project anyway, which has
Okay.
to do with resiliency in the town
It's
to
a
deal
whole-
with
we're just
public
yeah,
disasters.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
All right.
moving on down. I don't want to jump if people don't want to jump, but on page 323-24, outdoor weddings, that always confuses me. I know that if a wedding has a tent of a certain size, that it needs to be inspected by the fire department
Mm-hmm.
or by the town staff.
Yep.
Somebody that's qualified to do that. But we're basically allowing outdoor weddings everywhere with standards.
Because you're not.
Hmm?
How could you not? I guess.
Well, yeah,
It's a temporary.
They would also need a temporary use permit
Right.
and have to jump through those regulations.
for even a wedding without a tent.
Depending on the size of the wedding.
How do we? Is that defined in here?
So we
That's where
can
the town
add.
just rewrote
I
all
don't.
that.
I don't recall what the size of the tent is that triggers the fire. Do you know?
I mean, that's fire code. I think it's 700 feet. Depends
Yeah,
on if
there's
it has size
there's
or
a
not.
size.
Mhm.
Okay.
It's the size, and it really just has to do with public safety at that event.
So
But regardless of the tent, if the wedding's happening, we need to know it,
yeah.
and they need to have a special use permit, temporary use permit,
Yep.
in order to have it.
I'm going to bootstrap a question onto that, and I understand what you said. We have yard sales all the time, and we have a fee for a yard sale permit. But I don't know how many of our citizens, I'm going to approach this from a very understanding standpoint, how many of our citizens realize that they really do need to have a permit. And we want to do that to make sure that parking is taken care of and it's public safety access and that people aren't parking on other people's property, But we certainly don't have somebody riding around on weekends that sees the yard sale sign and goes up to see if they have a permit, do we?
We do sell a lot of yard sale permits, and then a copy of that is given to the police department, and the police department has the authority to stop at any yard sale that's happening and request to see their permit. And if they're unable to produce it, then he can close that yard sale down.
We did not, and that's a good point.
We've not addressed that.
That
anywhere
yard
in
sales is not in here. That's, I guess, it's in general.
Because we kind of confuse them with flea markets.
Flea market's a different thing. Yep. But yard sales we can add to the table.
Okay.
I mean, if needed, unless it's working swimmingly already. I don't know if Chad or Lisa have
Well, right now, there's really no link that comes back into the UDO as to what
Right.
it can be and
Yep.
I guess I don't know
how
how,
many
the,
days
how,
it can
how
be.
the UDO. I don't know how it would apply. You know.
It
It seems like
temporary
it's better
use.
in general. Well, because nobody plans a yard sale.
Yep.
When they're developing their property.
Yep.
They're way past us. They don't say, "Here's the yard sale lot."
No, it's temporary, meaning that it just happens on a temporary basis, similar to these other ones. But I don't know if you guys have a.
Don't.
And how would
I've
we?
never seen anything that addresses it.
It's in the general code, and it's my mistake for not bringing that forward. But if it's already working in the general code, I mean,
And the difference is that under general code, it's handled through administration and police. If you put it in the UDO, then it comes under Chad and the zoning administrator, which is irrelevant either way.
What do people do
It's-
now if a yard sale is going on in their neighborhood and people are parking on your lawn and you
That's a police matter.
Police
You call 911.
call the police?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess the general question is it working okay?
if it's working okay, then I don't.
Leave it
we don't
alone.
need to
Okay.
upset the.
Yeah,
I
and I have another question. I mean, this would cover what are called estate sales, which
Yeah.
may not actually occur in a yard, but I
Indoors?
mean, so that's under the umbrella of the same regulations.
I would say
That's a little different.
it's a,
Temporary
it's a
event.
temporary
Yeah,
event or
that's,
use.
'cause that's advertised and you bid on things. It's different than a yard sale.
Mm-hmm.
The yard sale is, and you or a group of your neighbors get together and you put it in your driveway.
If you
on a
look,
Saturday.
Richard, you have special sales or flea markets. 3 up from the bottom on page 3-24.
Okay.
And that's still under the same use standard
Yeah.
as 3.9A.
Yeah.
Circuses, carnivals.
So we don't, I mean, right now we're not having any issue with that. I mean, I don't see many estate sales here, but
They
Uh,
have.
it's fairly common, you know, when a senior member of a family that's lived here for a long time deceases, it's one of the best ways to liquidate those belongings, but it's not going to happen in a yard. People are going to walk in the house.
We
Okay.
talk about convention centers here under the temporary use.
Yep.
We don't have a convention center right now that's operating, but when we do, I would hope that they don't have to go get a permit every time they have a convention.
Exactly why I struck that. If you got a convention center, you don't need to have a temporary use.
But it wasn't struck. It's under 3.9A, under page 3-46. It says
Oh.
conventions held in approved convention centers may use indoor and outdoor vendors.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry, I struck it from the table
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
because it didn't make sense in the table.
gotcha.
Well, a
And
convention
I see where you did, yes.
often have outdoor. So there's nothing in here that's going to prevent or inhibit them from having.
The after golf event tent.
It says may use
Yeah,
indoor
well,
and
Ted,
outdoor vendors.
Sometimes they'll have, you know, drive-up restaurants. Like I know, Brew House has a pizza oven that they often drive up in front of events.
You
I mean,
can't do that here, though.
Yeah, that's Ocean.
Well, they do it.
That's Ocean Isle.
They
That's not here.
Okay. So where? I mean, where is it, and is it something we want to include, or is it somewhere?
Well, we haven't addressed mobile kitchens,
Vendor or food truck.
food trucks. That's what I was
Food
trying to think
trucks,
of the
right.
word.
It's in here.
Yeah.
Mobile vendor or food trucks.
Yeah.
It's a PS and MB1, MB2,
What,
and
give me a
BB1.
number.
Right above where we are, page 324 in the table.
Mobile food center.
Okay.
The third one down,
3.9C.
and 3.9C is
That's what I
the,
needed to look at is 3.9C.
I'm sorry, where is it?
It's on page 3-48.
Ah. Okay, so we haven't gotten there yet. All right.
Right.
I guess
We haven't
that's-
gotten to that use standard, although
we might as well jump into the use standards,
we've
right?
gotten to it on the table.
Peter, we on 3.24 page.
Yes.
Where are we at? I think we're done with that, right?
3.24, 3-24. I think we're
Yeah,
on to.
after weddings, and we're going to add a yard sale.
We said
No.
we're not going to because
They
it's-
said there was
it's-
no need.
right.
Okay.
Okay.
But the outdoor, and I had a question about outdoor weddings, which has been satisfied.
Okay.
Okay. Whew.
On 3.39.
Okay.
I don't like J at all. So. We all love restaurants until you happen to live next to one. So I just think we haven't, these use standards, now maybe they're covered somewhere else and someone's going to correct me, but privacy fences around these establishments if they're adjacent to any residential uses, fully enclosing the garbage, including cleaning, in-place cleaning facilities. It's almost normally occurs in the rodent control sections. We might have that somewhere else.
There would be buffer standards that would apply, and then you also have a dumpster screening provision that will apply as well. Now, you all asked for sort of some use standards to add to restaurants, sort of at a loss for what specific to add, but those two things are addressed with buffering and dumpster screening. Anywhere that there's a dumpster in town has to be screened.
And cleaning facilities
Meaning,
in the enclosure. Drain and hoses.
okay,
So
For-
they
to-
could- so
to-
that
to-
so that I mean food establishments,
yeah.
number one attraction for vermin and rodents.
So,
And grackles
And
and
smell.
crows.
Right.
so adding a provision here for eating establishments that they shall be
Enclosed. Well, for the trash areas to be enclosed, and there should be cleaning provisions
those
built
they'll
in.
be enclosed, but adding a provision about requiring cleaning. I mean, I've never seen that put in an ordinance. We could put it in
It's
here.
probably more places you'll see that kind of stuff in the rodent control section of municipal ordinances.
Isn't that governed by the state with their rating system? And
I would think so, and we
I
could
don't
put
know.
in here that they have to have a hose out there. That doesn't mean that they're going to use it. I mean,
Well, I mean, I'll give you a classic
Yeah.
example. If you try and eat outside at the Hardee's, okay, you will spend a good portion of your time chasing away grackles and crows. Very unpleasant.
it's
and I
because
would
somebody
see-
feeds them.
yes.
The garbage usually
Yeah.
feeds it.
No, but there's somebody that goes out there and throws breadcrumbs out of
Well,
it.
my thought process is you have a restaurant, and maybe there's adjacent to the restaurant property, residential properties,
Yeah.
especially is my concern, because
Talking about MB2 right here.
yeah, okay, and it's like great, we all want restaurants, but when you're living next to one, like say the control of the trash in for odors and rodent control is to me critical that those be, whether in this part of the code or some other part of our code, is important, because once the restaurant's there and it's out of and that part is not handled properly, it's bad for anybody that lives near it.
Yeah.
I think that is outside of what we're
Okay.
doing here.
Well, I mean,
I mean, I can look in the general code to figure out how that would be handled, but you know,
like
we're trying to regulate.
It's like handling smells from an exhaust fan.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, an
Things
exhaust
like
fan
that.
is a hard one, because most people with a fryer is going to put an upblast exhaust fan on the roof
Yeah.
Mhm.
because it saves the roof. But you know what that upblast fan does to the neighbors?
Well,
you-
depending on the neighbors, they may like the smell.
Well, but
But
not
they
the,
have a lot
not
of
the
grease.
thin layer of grease that
Yeah,
covers
thin layer
everything.
grease. Yeah, I don't know what to do, guys.
I know.
We can just say no restaurants.
No, I know. We
Well,
don't. But
you know, I
There's
want to.
certain things that I think we have to accept,
Mhm.
and that is we have a piece of property and it's adjacent to something else that's zoned differently. Even though the establishment hasn't been built yet,
You have to understand that there may be certain impacts.
Yeah.
but Ron's bringing up a point that maybe we need some safeguards
Okay.
to be able to insert ourselves as a town into that.
and I
Okay.
think
For the protection
I'd
of our own
rather have the
citizens, but
business
That's
owner,
very difficult.
the restaurateur know these things when they're proposing it,
Right. Because the
then
other
not try to
the other
code
as-
enforce afterwards.
the other aspect of this, at least in terms of my perspective, is, we're trying to encourage mixed use development. That means restaurants need to go into communities, for instance, like the Houses Place. Okay. Yes, we need to make sure that they don't impact the quality of life of the surrounding residents. But those residents, at least the ones that I talk to, are complaining about the fact that there's no place to go other than get in your car and drive.
Houses is a little different because it's all multifamily that surround it. It's
Well, in some respects, I would think that would make the standards higher because anything that they do wrong is going to impact more people. I look within Sea Trail in terms of some of the plats that would probably be used for this. Some of them are in the area of the golf course, wouldn't impact anybody. Others of them are closer to residential areas. And I don't want to shut the door on that we need to provide some standards, but I want to keep in mind that this is what we're attempting to promote, or at least in my view, so that we get a better mix of commercial and residential within existing subdivisions and in subdivisions that are being planned.
Yeah, the other thing that you've got to keep in mind is that we haven't got to yet is there are buffering standards that are going to be in the landscaping part of this UDO that we have not gotten from West yet that already exist in the ordinance.
Right.
Okay.
Where exactly are you all on?
We're on page
339.
339.
339.
but
3-3.
we're bouncing back and forth
No,
because we have a table and then we have a description of those uses. So we've already gone through the
We're on
table.
item J
completely.
on that page. 339.
Okay.
J1.
J, eating establishments used to be called restaurants. And we do have some use standards there. My initial feeling was not strong enough or not being, and again, I agree with Wes. We cannot have zero impact.
Mhm.
I'm of the, general view that when someone is going to propose a business, if they know what they can do things to mitigate some of the impacts,
Mhm.
and that's what we should be
Right.
encouraging
Before they build.
when they plan to build in the plan.
So when I first started going down this, I spent a fair amount of time on this. I started to put in provisions for outdoor entertainment, limiting the separation from that. I started to put in limits on the location of a restaurant and its proximity to a residential district or a residential use. And then I started to look out where these things are, and it would preclude some of your existing facilities. I think that I don't know what to do for you guys.
Yeah.
Some of you guys want these things, others don't. To me,
doesn't the health department regulate
and the health
where
department
the
regulates
things have to be and how clean they have
and the
to
health
be?
department
and
regulates a number of those
that's
other things.
all health department.
And I know that like in the land use plan, the number one thing that people want are restaurants.
Right.
So
Until they empty
Until
the
it's next to
dumpster,
them.
until GFI empties the dumpster with a
Yeah.
backup horn going at 6 o'clock in the morning.
that's right. But
Yes.
like you said, Pete, if you live next to a commercial district, there's certain things that you need to anticipate.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to,
I didn't like Jay for a different reason because it didn't seem to say anything about screening, but Chad I think just reiterated
gonna
that
have-
that's going to be coming up when we
yeah,
talk about
it already
buffering.
exists. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And we're not going to get rid of it. We could put something about, the exhaust. I don't know enough about restaurants to know if they need this type of facility. And if you say that they can't have it, then the restaurant can't exist. I can look to see if I've never seen an ordinance that has a regulation, a zoning ordinance about exhaust fans, but I could take a look at that.
And I would caution you that the town council is very business minded
Yeah.
right now. We don't want to do anything that's going to run business away from the town of Sunset
Well,
Beach
That is
with
exactly
over
what traffic
regulations.
is.
Yeah,
But business is done right
right.
is what we should be minded. And certainly a restaurateur or developer can, if properly guided, incorporate in their design and equipment
Like
to
give an
mitigate.
example.
Well, like I said, if you're going to have to if you're going to just say screen your garbage, okay, that's the, but how it's screened, how it's not visible. Are there the cleaning provision? You say you could force someone to put cleaning provisions in there, but they won't use it. Oh, okay, but that's part of the design process. That's self-cleaning
don't know
drains
what
and
you
drains and hoses, so
Okay.
that the enclosure can be cleaned, because there's not all garbage hits the can from a restaurant.
Now that's over the top. When
That-
you're looking at a UDO, that's just over the top.
A cleaning.
No, regulating how they have to clean something.
No, just that you met
Yeah,
the
but
provisions be
If-
designed
if
in.
something is attracting rodents, I would think the health
That's
department
code
could
enforcement.
come in and say you are creating a situation which is unhealthy.
Yeah.
And- but
And that would be county.
but because there's spillage at the grease trap, I don't know how to
That's health department.
regulate that.
And health department is county.
Yes.
Do you want to wait and see what he does for screening, or you think the screening is really just going to be dimensional and not
So solid
health
waste
related?
collection dumpsters, which this is going to be, we're going to have similar language. I'm not throwing this out. Solid waste collection dumpsters used for etc., which will be eating establishments, shall be screened from the view of adjoining residences, residentially zoned lots, or street right of way. Such screening may consist of fences, walls, or berms, and shall be installed, located, or constructed so as to create an effective screen. Now we can further elaborate on that when we get there, but this is screening of dumpsters specifically is in your existing ordinance, and it will be folding into your new draft ordinance as well. And there's also going to be buffers put in.
You want to wait and see that, Ron, or
Sure.
I'll highlight that in support of your concern here.
Well, I mean, also, this is something that could be dealt with in the conditional rezoning application.
Yes, if there are, that's correct. If someone wants to do conditional zoning for a restaurant, then there are conditions that can be attached that would be agreeable to both the town and the applicant.
Because, I mean, the challenge we're getting into, and we kind of got into it when we attempted to do that text amendment, that with the 54 holes of golf and all that stuff, is now with the conditional rezoning, it's very specific. The town has the right to say, no, you have to do this, you have to do that.
They have to
And-
agree to it, though.
And they have to agree to it.
Yeah.
And, that way we can kind of adjust the standards. I mean,
Yes.
the standards could be a little looser if you're in a business area.
Yep.
But if you're in a residential area, we're going to require a more stringent standard in terms of some of the issues that Ron raises.
Yes.
So that gives us some
Option.
options, assuming that the town council in its wisdom passes that
All right,
conditional
looking
rezoning.
at the clock, does anybody have any issues with golf courses?
Should we mention pickleball in that description now? We
Well,
mentioned tennis, but
Pete,
we
I've got
do.
one question.
We do under D. Sorry?
I've got one question. Back on 3.24, 3-24, whatever. Mobile vendors and food trucks.
Yes.
As it stands right now, the town council doesn't allow food trucks anywhere outside of a special event within town limits. Is that taken into consideration here?
No,
'Cause I'm not seeing it.
No, this would open the door for that.
Well, that-
potentially.
We have a mobile vendors or food trucks, and there's almost a whole page of that on 3-48.
Right, that's what I'm reading that, and it doesn't specify that these are prohibited outside of a special event within side town limits.
Good point.
It doesn't. My I guess the discussion was to allow these, but you know, there's a lot of regulations in here on separation from existing.
It's been the town council's opinion since I've been here that food trucks are not allowed inside town limits outside of a special event. Anywhere.
Isn't there some?
But why?
Yeah. Because
I mean, you could pick any number of.
I could see some value in having food trucks in BB1.
I think the point is controlling them and monitoring them, because that means that every bank up and down the street could have a hot dog truck out in front at lunchtime, or a
Or
donut.
they could just pull into the parking lot and set up shop.
On private property?
And with all due respect, Lisa, do you guys, once we get to that section, you want to discuss? Let's discuss it
Yeah.
once we get to page 348. Assuming we make it there today and talk about, to Lisa's point, are we going to nix these? Are these regulations applicable?
All right, I'm going to make a note.
Okay.
With a
Yeah.
question mark outside of event permit
Yeah.
Yeah. On mobile vendor food truck
under C.
348C.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. On golf courses, pickleball courts are allowed. I know in golf, and I don't know if we need to talk any more about golf.
I think that it would housekeeping under under K 2D.
Mhm.
I think it needs to say tennis courts, comma, pickleball courts, and similar customary recreational facilities.
Okay.
Because I don't know what a customary recreational facility. It could be something that has nothing to do with tennis courts and pickleball courts.
Badminton, volleyball.
Yeah, they would all fall into it.
Yeah.
And as you said before, all the lighting is controlled by the lighting standards.
Yes.
And I had a note here also under what about miniature golf? I think we answered that.
And the commercial use, right?
Then we have golf ranges. We have maximum fixture fixture heights 40 feet.
Is that there because it's different than the other standard?
It would be
So this is
a separate standard.
right. And I'll leave this to Jerry on the hours of operation. 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
I think 11 o'clock's a little too late.
Okay.
is 6 o'clock.
To 9.
Before, like this time of the year,
This time of year, yeah, it would be. But during the
Well,
summer months, where
How about 10 o'clock?
would it be better to have sun up as the start?
Sun up, yeah.
Sunrise? I don't know what's the, because
But
somewhere
the law
else we
doesn't
use
give
sunrise or
specifics.
sundown for a standard. Is it appropriate to use sunrise or as a standard without a specific time? Because it changes through the year. Obviously, you can go hit golf balls earlier in June than you can in November.
I mean,
That might
Yeah, but you can do it with lighting.
So we're allowing them to turn their lights on at 6
Yes, the way it's written.
now.
Yeah. No,
Is that what we want?
no.
The
I don't
park
think so.
uses sun up to sundown.
Well,
Yes.
the up part, I think we,
For
because
what
I don't
it's
think we want them in the winter to put their lights on. No, we'll have to
Do you-
go
do you-
to, I'll defer to Jerry in
Do,
this.
do you just want to?
Let's just change that to sun up to sundown.
Well, no, we want sundown. They can't be used because they can use their lights at night.
So remember that these may
Jerry
also-
says 10 o'clock maybe.
Okay.
So like sun up to 10 p.m.
Yeah, that's what I think. Because
Okay.
Because I think what we're trying to get is that we don't want them to turn their lights on in the morning. They have to wait for the sun to come up. In the summertime, that will be earlier. At this point of view, you can't hit golf balls until What is sunrise? 7:05 or 7:10 or something?
Ask the hunters. You're-
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
at night they can use their lights up until this says 11. Jerry recommended 10.
10.
okay.
Yeah, that'd be
I think 10's good. I agree with Jerry.
okay.
And I think
It's
sunup's good because, I mean, most golf courses are going to start letting people out on the course 30 minutes, 45 minutes after sunup because they need some time to get the course prepared. So the people that want to play early can show up at the driving range at sunup, get a few shots in, and then go play.
I get hit in the dark. Doesn't make any difference. I don't see where my ball goes anyway.
All right, we're moving on to marinas.
Wait, one last question. Right on the top of that page, number 2 for that
Yeah, 200 foot.
the hotel thing. The 200 foot for many single family residential purposes. Why do we need the single family in there? Shouldn't this be just residential purposes? Whether it's a multifamily or the 200 foot should be any residential. Take the word single family out. Or, no, Wes, I see you're looking your face.
I mean, I just think that
Yeah, but you basically said you can't put hotels in a whole bunch of spots now. If you have that.
So that doesn't
200
make
foot
any
in there.
difference anymore?
well, I mean, there may be locations where you're adjacent to multifamily. To me, I would say that it's a different type of environment than a single family neighborhood. That's why single family has been called out specifically. So, like, for example, where potentially in Sea Trail, where they maybe want to put a hotel, that may be closer to some of the multifamily uses.
Well, it's also saying you can't put a hotel on MB2 either because you're not going to have 200 foot from any single family residential.
Yep.
All along MB2.
Okay.
Well, where
Um,
they're putting it, is that now general been redefined as commercial?
Where?
The area where
No,
they want to put the hotel within Sea Trail.
No, it's still zoned MR3. We changed the land use classification.
So, yeah, I mean, Pete's right. I don't know.
what benefit does the 200 foot? To me, I wrote restrictive.
Yeah, well, then I wanted to start at some point. I'm fine to relax it down. And
Well, you have other setbacks
that's right. And buffer requirements.
Yeah.
So,
that speak in another area.
I mean, you can get rid of the separation altogether and just put a 1 acre threshold.
Hmm.
1
Yes.
acre seems a little
Yeah, that
small.
I hadn't put the two together, but yeah, the 1 acre. provides some
Did we have that
protection.
before? Is that where that came from?
You didn't have anything prior.
I didn't have
Yeah,
anything.
And I
prior.
felt the need to put something in here for fear of backlash.
So we're saying the building, well, the 1 acre doesn't, yeah. What would be, well, the setbacks, we don't know yet. We haven't talked about dimensions yet.
Setbacks would be
50 feet?
We have
whatever,
MB2.
whatever the district.
We have
would be.
MB2 setbacks right now.
Yeah.
Already. That's
But they're fairly small, right?
yeah.
And then you'd have buffer standards as well. So
I would like to see number 2 struck.
I'm just a little concerned, I guess, striking that without looking.
Well, we don't know what his new dimensional things are going to be. We haven't been received.
they're
They're
yet.
not,
similar.
they're not
We
changing.
know what they are now.
they're more or less the same. We'll talk
It's a,
about
it's a
it.
25 foot rear setback. It's a
Because we're saying the building, so there's usually going to be parking around the building, right?
Yeah.
possible.
But one
Not
side or one
necessarily.
corner of the building. So this is under H's. What is this under? Hotels and hotels are under M's. There they are.
Yeah, M.
Yeah, it's just the building, not necessarily the site. But I don't know. I mean, if you guys are supportive in general of hotels and motels, I don't think that they're necessarily a noxious use. Of course, the neighbors, no matter what it is, don't like it. Whether it's a hotel,
Yeah, but
restaurant,
we're not
etc.
allowing them everywhere.
Yeah, you're not allowing them everywhere.
Which ones we're allowing them in?
They were expanded to be allowed in MB2.
So MB1, MB2.
Special use in
MR3.
MR3, MB1, MB2, BB1, and MUD
So it's in MR3.
as a special use.
Because MR3
So you-
does have single-family residential
Right.
within it.
So you
Yes.
could be mixed in with a lot of
Predominantly.
residential.
Yeah, so I'm a little uncomfortable striking single, you know. I get why it might be appropriate to have it in a multifamily area because hotel is a multifamily unit. I mean,
Mhm.
just a temporary multifamily.
So
Yeah, but
you
it's a
could
special use.
Yeah.
you could add there under 2 in the MR3 district, comma, any building, etc., shall be not be located within 200 feet of any
Yeah, that
line.
may be appropriate.
Yeah,
I agree.
Okay, so we're going to revise.
or bring it to 100. I don't.
Well, first of all, so I think it's appropriate to say, yeah, MR3, right?
You're
And
s-
then the next question is the number, the 200 feet. 200, we're beating up 200.
Well,
Feet's a long
one
way.
was one was a footprint, and this is this dimension. So it's
It might be a bit restrictive, 200, don't you think?
I think so.
From the building.
yes. I mean, it knocks out MB2.
Now, is that, I guess, it's 200 feet from the
Not
building,
in MB2. We're just saying MR3 now.
MR3,
Only in MR3. Yeah,
200 feet from the hotel building
correct.
to the lot line.
Mhm.
Because this is saying for any lot used
Yeah.
for single family purpose.
That's correct. Yep. That would
So-
be the lot line. Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
because
talking about any building, including accessory structures now.
Mhm.
It's not just the primary
yeah,
building.
200 feet may be a bit
Okay.
tough. I don't know what the right number should be, I guess. What do we say on that now?
now in that area, can in that 200 feet setback, can they have parking in that area? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking about the
The
building,
building.
not
Yeah.
the accessory.
200 seems a bit much, but I don't know, have clue what the right number might be.
These. I
100?
mean, we're trying to plan for hypotheticals here. So
100
Right.
maybe?
yeah, sure, 100.
Well,
And if
I think 100 is restrictive too, but let's go
Okay.
to that, and
Let's
then
go to
we'll
that.
revisit it when we
Okay.
come to it. But we're going to also add in MR3.
Yes, specifically to MR3.
All right, now just looking at the clock, we've got a couple of minutes before our 2-hour minimum. And just as a point, we got a long way to go to finish
Mhm.
the latest homework assignment. So I'm going to discourage extending the meeting, but it's obviously everyone's decision.
I would make a motion to extend it for an hour. I haven't.
Till 11:30 or 11:45.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I'm good. till
I'm
noon.
good either way. It's whatever. Whoever has the most restrictions, raise their hand.
Chad and I have a meeting at noon.
All right,
so,
let's go to 11:30. I'd
but we
like,
can do 45.
Yeah,
but-
let's do 11:45.
You can't.
okay. No, I can make it work. I can make it work.
11:30
Well,
better.
let's just do
No,
11:30 then.
Both aren't good, but it's all right.
We can do 11:30. I think in another 30 minutes, people are going to be.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd
So we'll
to-
extend
like-
11:30.
Like
Yeah.
to hear a motion that we extend the meeting to 11:30.
I
So
so
moved.
move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So done.
Okay.
All right, we're now into Marina.
Yes, but Mr. Chair, sorry, I skipped one. Yeah, let's talk about Marina, and then I
Okay.
want to talk about maritime rail.
I got to read my notes here because I got a big note about this one. I said here, let's discuss the reasonableness of this happening in our limited space. Could we position a marina off of our existing town park, off of Majestic Oaks or Shoreline Drive West? Most of the marinas that we deal with right now are on the Intercoastal Waterway.
Mhm.
I don't know if we could get a permit to put a marina off of Shoreline Drive West on town property.
Right.
Or not. I would think there's all kinds of.
Yeah, and that's a separate thing. If they can get the camera permit, that's fine. But and who knows? It's a good thing depending on who you ask. But I think it's a good thing that CAMA still exists. But who knows? There may
All right,
come
well-
a time that they don't.
We've enabled that, at least taking that step by allowing it in CR1, which is really all of the areas that we would probably ever conceive having a marina.
But CR1, it is only permitted where you're adjacent to a commercial zoning district. So,
Okay.
right.
Yes. Yes.
So that's the key distinction there, because CR1 is basically all of your anything that's below mean high tide. So you need to presumably be able to use that, but it would necessitate if someone would need to rezone property, or they need to be MB1 with CR1 next to them,
Or the town owning the property.
or that.
Okay. That's asked my question. That's answered my question. We had talked before about, and I'm not trying to move ahead when people aren't ready, but the maritime rental, I think we made the distinction that it's non-motorized and you can't even you can't repair motorized portions of.
And the
The-
reason,
the-
and what
the-
is our reasoning
the-
beyond
the-
non-motorized?
There
events?
is. Well, I want to come back to that question because that's a great question that I think we need to discuss. But number 4, Mr. Chair, says only routine maintenance is in there.
Changing a tire,
Pardon?
changing a flat tire.
Yeah. So I mean, you can add the sentence in there that specifically says that work on motorized engines, etc., shall not be permitted. Or
We have a little bit of that in the automobile part. Says that things you can't do, like a general engine rebuild.
But-
Could we copy some of that over? Would be appropriate.
Well, so I think that what we were going to do at the last suggestion was to consolidate auto and maritime into one category for more substantial repairs and not
Mhm.
necessarily have
Right.
limitations. But
But you're
this
still
would,
saying allow minor
well-
repairs.
well, I just want to make sure perhaps this could be worded, it could say that, only minor repairs shall only be for non-motorized or something to that extent, or leave it as it is. I don't.
Well, before maybe looking at that, the question is the non-motorized. If you're going to do only non-motorized, then there should be no motor maintenance. Period.
This is for rental
Right.
specifically. So,
Well, the
yes.
thought here, I guess, is if you're renting a paddle boat or something, and a foot thing comes off, you can fix that. Right. Requires maybe a new bolt or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you can fix anything that isn't motorized.
Right. But it goes back to the question: why do we have non-motorized? Period.
well, I can
When
give.
someone who rents a motorized vehicle, watercraft, elsewhere, can still drive by.
Yeah.
I mean, why do we
It-
not say
it's
someone
been-
can't rent them something to go
Sure.
and come back versus you can rent it somewhere else and drive by?
You guys are welcome to modify it. I can tell you that there's been a history of this. This was probably almost a decade or ago, Lisa, right? With the whole jet ski and
Down here at the boat ramp,
yeah,
Board of Adjustment.
yeah. So, it was put into place to limit the proliferation of folks renting jet skis to whoever, and they're causing
Noise.
not noise accidents.
Well, but and that
But-
brings up a good
Yeah.
point. Do we want to have them able to rent jet skis and then they take them down to the boat ramp and put them in, and then we have a proliferation of jet skis in our waterway right here at the town?
That was part of it too.
But you can anyway because they come from elsewhere or they have personal watercraft. If you
Yes.
own one, you can launch it, right?
If you own one, you can launch it. But
And
the
and
key-
if you can go, I don't know who else rents jet skis around
You
here. I
can
don't
rent
have
Ocean
one.
Isle Beach and bring them into our boat ramp.
And you could
That's
come here
right.
anyway. So I wonder,
you can ride them through the jurisdiction. I think that the key is that there's not a site in
it's
which
the proliferation of them. It's the abundance of them
Yep.
being focused on us here.
I mean, because they go. I mean, I'm not on the water, but not that far. But in the summer, I hear them. They're going up and
It's
back
not
all
the
day.
it's not the noise. It's the I mean, I can tell you personally from around where I live that the jet ski rentals are problematic because people have no idea what they're doing, and
Yes.
and not to mention that
And they
boaters also have no idea what they're
Tends
doing.
to be
Yeah,
groups too that do it.
yeah.
So
That's why it's in there. But you guys are welcome to sort of
So you-
modify this.
you're then okay with renting somebody a paddle boat, kayak,
They cannot kill anybody on
but
that.
but
Or
they're out there with
themselves.
the other crazies driving ski doos.
Yeah.
So they're just the targets. Then we're okay renting targets, but not.
How about
Projectiles.
if we revise
Okay.
number 4 or O4 to say only routine maintenance of non-motorized
Vehicle or non-motorized rentals.
Does anybody have a problem with that?
No.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, no, that's
I
fine.
think it's in
As
the
long-
spirit.
So we don't have any requests where people have ever asked to create this kind of business, right?
It is a sticking point in a number of our local governments around the region. Our beaches, beach communities. There's been an ongoing court case in Wrightsville Beach for at least the last 5 years about this.
What beach?
Town of Wrightsville Beach.
Okay.
Can we advance to microbreweries, please?
Oh, please.
Under number 2, we have this sentence, to me, it doesn't need to be here, where it says required parking shall be calculated based on square footage proposed for each use. Don't we deal with that elsewhere?
That's a very good point. That can be taken.
Um,
When I was reading this, a lot of maybe not. They kind of enclose them. They could put some of their equipment outside, right? Is that
some of what
covered?
equipment? Breweries?
Yeah, like some of the tanks sometimes are on a pad outside. Is that
I have not seen
I think
that.
they
I've
have
seen
to be,
that.
they have to be temperature controlled
Yeah.
well? You
for
can from the
fermentation.
because they're jacketed. They're double layer.
This just says that they're gonna have silos, etc. They got to be behind the building or screened.
Right. So what I'm wondering is the 20,000 square feet of gross floor area that includes all production area, or
That's right.
Storage.
so in other words, if they build a building that has the restaurant but they have an outdoor pad that's just screened in where the tanks are, that's included in that
That
20,000.
would be included.
The way it's written here.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get to.
Okay.
Is the building, they can't put a 20,000 square foot building that has retail and seating and then a 2,000 square foot pad next to it where some tanks are, and it's
That's
really 22,000, but they've met the 20,000.
That's right. They could not.
Okay.
When we talk about outdoor screening, when we've dealt with screening in the past on a number of things, we talk about a height. But do we ever talk about stacking material that you're trying to screen even higher than the screening device itself?
I thought that we had a provision for that somewhere. Whew.
I know we dealt with that earlier on, and I wasn't really satisfied that we.
I thought that we said that any outdoor storage cannot exceed the height of the enclosure.
Okay, and I didn't see that.
That would have been in one of our last
Okay.
things that we worked on.
That answers this then. Okay. Parking lots. No, nothing there. But public piers. What's the difference between a public and a private pier? I mean, I'm a master of the obvious, but it's. Can I have a pier on my house and rent a slip to my next door neighbor?
We limited that to
To two.
That's right.
So can I rent both of them to other people that live in Cleveland?
Um,
I think I can.
yes. You used
Does
to
that
have,
but that still doesn't make it a public pier
I don't
because the
believe
general
that.
public is
That's
not
right.
allowed to access it.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Um, All right, yeah, we want to sell fishing licenses. That's we come to salvage yard, which Ron and I question whether we need to have this at all, and I think you answered that. I wasn't satisfied with the reality, but it's there. Same for shooting ranges.
Two questions on you, I guess I have. Shooting ranges.
Hmm.
One may be an educational thing. In UB1, within the safety fan zone, what's the fan zone?
That is spelled out in the range manual documentation.
Okay, so that has a jargon.
That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm wondering, because I couldn't find it in this, should we have an additional K, a J, limiting the hours of operation?
You could. I don't believe there's one in here at present.
I got one question.
From like 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. or is what I wrote down, but I'm open to that. Because we can control the hours. So
Yeah,
it
can we
seems
do
like
it?
the shooting ranges should be, not that it's likely that we're going to have one,
Right.
obviously, but we've got like a page and a half of stuff here. And the one thing I couldn't find was
Okay.
limiting the hours of operation. In my proposal, which I didn't think a lot of, was just 11 to 9, but I'm open to any kind of number.
11 a.m.
If we're going to try to be realistic, I think somebody could say that's unreasonable.
Okay.
Um,
10 a.m. to
yeah,
10 p.m. or
10
something.
a.m. to 6 p.m. or
9, well, I was thinking 9.
10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah,
Okay.
10 a.m. to 9 p.m. sounds good.
One question.
Okay, Jerry?
On the outdoor ranges, there's how do they handle the lead and ground contamination from the buckshot?
On indoor?
Outdoor.
Outdoor. Yeah,
I-
are there
if you ever
requirements?
if you ever seen an outdoor facility,
It's
the
everywhere.
lead contamination is,
It's a big mound of dirt and it
and it's,
sits there.
so I don't know, that needs to be addressed.
Does the range manual dictate that from an environmental standpoint now, Wes?
That's a very good question.
Well, I don't know, you got the NRA standards here. I don't know if they would address that probably. They're more
Obviously,
related to safety and everything, not environmental. So is there I guess the question is, there are environmental standards for shooting
I
ranges?
don't know.
Can we put something in here just to be,
Or to investigate
he,
that?
he would have to properly remediate the property before, if it's vacated, he would have to remediate it
I
prior
thought,
to sale.
well, in
Well,
my
there's something-
previous home location, I think the state had something about
Yeah.
removing lead.
Yeah.
Not steel shot, but lead shot, lead
Buckshot.
from your facility.
I got a note here.
something
Frankly,
needs
I
to be
don't-
in there
I'm not-
about recovery of environmental hazards created by the operation of the,
Right.
The range.
There may be some state standards already, or if not, if not, I guess then we have to consider maybe adding something there.
I mean, we
Environmental.
under K, there's abandonment and discontinuance. We can just say that the site shall be restored to its
Original state.
original state, including the removal of any.
Environmental hazards.
Well, I
Right.
would say any ammunition, et cetera, whatever word, because
Yep.
we don't know what the site was before.
it could have been a gas station.
Yeah.
That would be fun, have gas tanks and shoot galleries.
Are you satisfied with that, Jerry?
Yes. That's the only thing I picked up.
I had something about shopping centers. The present definition for shopping centers, this is V on
Mhm.
page 345, is very short. It says a commercial development consisting of retail and public commercial uses, which consists of 5 or more establishments planned as an integrated development.
A strip
Um,
mall, what used to be called. Would,
Is the 5 somewhat arbitrary? We have a no greater than 5,000 square foot of floor area, but that's for no individual establishment,
Hmm.
for the whole shopping center.
and that's only within BB1, right? Outside of BB1, they can be any size. Well, not any size. But
That's correct.
Yeah, but they still, if it's 5 or more, it has to be a planned integrated development. I don't. I guess I was wondering where the 5 came from, but I guess it probably came from a board like us.
It's and Pete, I'm trying to find this definition. Was that in the earlier section?
It's in A37. It's an existing.
It's an
definition.
existing
Existing
Okay,
definition.
that's why I didn't include it in there. Yes, that was in there from a. I'm not sure why that.
So it's a number.
We can change it to 3.
Well, I guess to me where it comes up, so, but in BB1, you're saying, so you can, BB1, you could have up to 5 or 5,000 or 25,000 square feet.
And it can be modified to 3. I mean, otherwise it's just be a retail facility.
It seems like 5,000 maybe is too big.
Okay. And okay, that answers me.
Yeah.
That
So if you
answers
got
me.
something that's 20-foot frontage by, I mean, I'm thinking of the little shops. What are they frontage usually? Like so
Depends.
maybe 3,000 square feet would be, if you had 5 little 3,000-foot shops,
Mhm.
which would be 15,000, would be a little more appropriate for BB1. Never mind.
And I hear you. I just
You were working on the 5 number.
Yeah.
I'm working on whether
You're-
we reduce the 5,000 down to 3,000 such that the whole thing has to be a little bit smaller. You could have 5 small shops, but not 5 larger shops. Right? By changing that number to 3,000, you get a strip mall that's no more than 15,000. Right now, you're really saying
and we are just talking
25.
about BB1.
Yes. Outside of that, you can go bigger.
Is there a difference between this and retail?
Well, so let's go back to the 5 number. I mean, I don't think it would be inappropriate to change it from 5 to 3. We'll call multifamily, for example, anything that's 3 or more units. So we want to have a strip with 3 units. Clarify that I don't think anyone has an issue with that, and then we'll talk about the square footage.
Yes, I think that's. I
Yes.
think we could get an
Okay.
agreement.
Okay. Secondly, the size. I believe we landed on the 5,000 square feet because there are some existing retail units that are that size at present. Those lots, they are pretty small, but they are fairly deep. So, that's why that number's in there.
It's
So you're thinking better off changing the definition from 5 to 3, but leave the 5,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
and the drive-through. I think is important. So let's
Okay.
retain that.
So I guess we need a new definition then.
No drive-through allowed. Okay. We talked quite a bit about storage facility, self-storage. I think we answered that. We talked about utility service, large and small. We talked about animal boarding. We talked about outdoor weddings and temporary uses.
My only question on the outdoor weddings is just the wedding terminology. Should we expand that to like family events or something? I mean, there could be, I'm not Jewish, but there could be like bar mitzvahs or something. I mean, we're saying wedding. Is that not really not appropriate? Should in general be more generic and say family event or something like that? I mean, most commonly maybe is wedding, but I think there could be other family events.
I
of
think
just a family
I think
reunion.
it would be viewed in the same light.
It doesn't, so we couldn't
Yeah.
leave weddings or just.
I would leave it the way it is. I mean,
How about if you say outdoor weddings or events using tents?
I was going to say just take,
Does that
substitute
extrapolate
the word
that?
wedding for
Well, I
outdoor
mean-
family event using tent.
All of these events can use a tent.
But anybody that uses a tent still has to fall under a certain, just like weddings, it's a safety issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because tents are regulated by the fire code, not the UDO.
True.
I mean, it hasn't been. Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong. Has this been a problem in the past? Are we trying to regulate something that we're it's sort of worked in the past. If someone wants to have a cookout or whatever, great. But if wedding is a very different thing.
Yeah, weddings usually involve multi-day setup, tear down, and then the day of.
It's an organized
parking
event that
comes
requires
in to
caterers.
place. Right.
I was saying,
But one could
but there's
say that
other
a-
family events that
Yeah,
are the
family
same.
reunion could
Family
have the same-
reunion, bar mitzvahs. I mean,
But I think they would be regulated in the same fashion.
Yeah.
That's
But,
what
but doesn't it need to be stated that it isn't just restricted to weddings?
it could, but I fear that we're going to start going down a rabbit hole here on things that we don't need to open the can of worms on.
Well, my question is, why are you tying it to using tents?
We're not right now. We're not. It's just
Well,
called a-
that's what it says though. Outdoor
does
weddings using
say-
tents.
okay.
Outdoor
number
weddings
6.
using tents.
Oh,
Because I said if no tent,
Okay,
then they
got
don't
it.
need to apply for a permit.
oh, thank you. That's the existing rule. This is the language that's in there at present.
Yeah, because I could see someone celebrating a graduation might do the same thing as an outdoor wedding.
Well, you can have a wedding with 6 people too. I hate to have. You don't need to get a permit.
Yeah.
A
Well, I
business
mean,
thing, an outdoor wedding.
for a larger,
Why do we even need to have outdoor weddings in here?
Well,
For the park.
mainly for the park.
But isn't that covered under park rules?
That's a good question.
All that has been combined into the temporary use rules, which probably all this is different.
Well,
This
it's,
probably
we've,
hasn't
we've,
been updated.
we've
since the
tried to
council
consolidate
did all
these.
that.
We try to consolidate these.
So you've seen that the temporary use thing that, of course you have. Of
Yep.
course you have. You were
Yep.
the author.
Yeah, he lived it with us. We share.
so this this really could come under temporary use permits and then if it's a graduation, a bar mitzvah, sitting shiva, whatever.
So this here is an attempt to deal with existing UDO. It's not an attempt to deal with the new temporary use conversations that town council has had.
I mean, I think we're trying to figure out how to regulate these things. I mean, I can get with Chad and we can look at this again. Why don't we just do that?
Okay.
We'll bring back,
Okay.
and Lisa, and we'll make sure we got this all aligned how we need to regulate it.
Under the table 3.2 on page 3-47, if you go down to the second to the last box in that table, it says 18 months unless authorized longer by council. I would hate to burden council with all of that. Can it be the UDO administrator?
Good point.
Page 3-47, the table 3.2. Go all the way down to the bottom of those boxes in that table, and it's in one of the last ones, 8 to the right, 18 months unless authorized longer by council.
Um,
Well, you're talking about a temporary use time allocation. And this is under maximum allowed duration for each separate use or event per site. And we're talking about putting an 18-month duration on it.
this is where someone's had a house damage or something to that effect
post storm.
post storm, and they've got.
But I would think that UDO administrator would be in a good position to deal with that.
Chad?
Maybe the town administrator.
Hold on, because I can very speak on this. Unless you put specific guidelines in there, I would want it to come back on the burden of council, and here's why. When I worked for Pender County,
Yep.
we allowed RVs in the damage of flooding. We allowed you to live in a camper and RV
In your driveway.
on your property for the period of 18 months. After that, what do? So it came the burden of these people are still affected after 18 months. I don't want that burden on myself to say, yes, you can, but you cannot, or blanket.
And it could be based upon the
Because
diligence
it
that
could
the
be-
homeowner took in even getting a repair
'Cause
started. Or,
I don't want the responsibility of making the decision
Unless you've
So-
got clear criteria.
unless they got clear
Do we even
criteria.
have a method of bringing something like this before town council?
It would just be in a staff
It,
report.
it would
yeah.
just be a staff report. It would be approved
And a
going
request.
straight to council.
And
But
they
I
would then
don't.
vote on it.
But I don't want. So essentially, if staff or count or the commissioners at that point made the decision, we would be kicking people out of their homes because they had no permanent structure.
And it's, as a second shot, the town administrator would, you think, would be in the same box as you're in.
I wouldn't want that permission to go to council.
So if
Okay.
this were to be handled by the town council, the homeowner would be given the opportunity to present their
I think it would
situation.
be. I don't think
Yeah.
it would really be. Probably here it'd be looked at more of an individual basis. But I think honestly, you're looking at a more of a blanket situation because if we have a flooding event, you're not just particularly.
It may
It
be
might be
6 people on the same street.
correct.
Well, and it could also be somebody that's living in there and they're just haven't, for some reason, gotten their house fixed. So they
18
wanna
months
stay
is a
there
long
for another
time.
year. And,
Yeah.
and,
A year and a half. 18
and they have no
months is a-
motivation to repair the house because they got a place to live in.
Well, that was the problem.
That was the
when
problem.
all this stuff happened after Florence,
Florence.
and we were all knew exactly what was going to happen.
hmm
So,
I
But-
will,
Okay.
All right.
One
town
more-
council.
So
One
we'll
more-
leave it.
I only have one question on the table here. We seem to be awful hard on the fairs and other special recreational or entertainment events being one day. But if you have an outdoor wedding or whatever, bazaar or an antique car, you get 2 or 3 days. I wonder, should we have consistency between those groups there, all being 2 or 3 or something? Or I don't see a lot of differences, I guess.
but a fair, for a fair, you're allowed 14 days. For,
If it's an annual event.
yeah, that's right.
If you're not an annual event, you get 1 day. But if you have if you call it a classic car show instead, you get 2 days. Call it a bazaar, you get 3 days. It seems
Yeah.
like a lot of the same stuff. When I think we better off consistency, whether we pick 1, 2, or 3, whatever it is, we make them all the
Would you
same.
be satisfied as in the top line if you said fairs, antique car shows, and auto truck shows are 2 days? Give them 2 days instead of 1 day?
Or just on the 5th one down, change it to 2 days.
Yeah, something like that. Be more consistent. Yeah, it seems like you're just calling things different things that are.
Yeah.
Okay, move on.
All right.
2 days.
Everybody agree to that, 2 days?
Yes.
No problem.
Okay.
All right, we're coming up on time. I think we may be able
Yep.
to talk about mobile vendors or food trucks in this time period, and we may
Yes.
have to come back to it. So,
Okay.
as Lisa stated, historically, the position of the council has been to not allow these. A number of our local governments have changed course over the last couple of years to allow these. The reasons that I'm not and Lisa can probably speak on exactly why here in Sunset Beach, but I can tell you the reasons why in other places it's been a difficult thing for them to support them is that they want to support the brick and mortars, and the brick and mortars are not favorable to someone spending whatever $5,000 to sell hot dogs.
Can you say that if you have a brick and mortar, then you can also
No.
have a food truck?
Cannot do that. Town of Carolina Beach went down that path. That's not legal, in my opinion. But what you can do is you can put a separation clause. You know, if you do want to allow them, or if you don't want to allow them, I don't know. And ultimately, you know, you guys may figure out what you want. Town council, you may just have to be comfortable with them changing it after the fact. But most places you can put in there that if you're within 100 feet of a brick and mortar, you can't sell the same thing, or there's things that you can do.
There's applications that I think are very positive, and I'll give an example. A concert night here in the summer. It'd be great if we had 5 food trucks at the parking lot right next door here,
That's a special event,
and
and they
they
would be allowed.
but every
And they are
Wednesday.
allowed.
Every Wednesday.
Mhm.
Because that to me would be awesome. You could combine dinner and the concert. I think people would.
And the
be
first year, I
all over
think
that.
we did have
We did.
a pizza vendor.
Well, we had a pizza. We had the lobster guy would show up, and then he
Mhm.
stopped coming. but we had like 3 that were there when we were over by the big lot over by the planetarium.
Right.
Because we sort of left one and came back.
Yeah, I mean,
So that would be classified as a special event, and they would be allowed.
Okay.
but in general, well, I mean, obviously in urban areas, these things are very popular.
And-
Even in the urban areas that have fought it because of the restaurants.
Yeah.
In all the urban areas, the restaurateurs with brick and mortar fought it.
Well,
And then, of course, either got their own
that's right. Or,
and realize it's another good income stream for them to have a truck moving around doing the. So I'm just thinking
or they
that,
started as a food truck and then they became a brick and mortar.
right, which
Yeah.
is common.
Right. Also
Um,
common.
But
Because
Well,
so
I
I'm
think
thinking
it-
we need to find out a way to make it work because it seems like it would be for a vacation related area. It would be kind of a draw if we had, I'd almost say a food truck park in my mind. Even if we limited the area to a spot, that'll seem like it would be a draw for people to come to the area because the food trucks, obviously, the point of them sort of is on a small capital basis, you can offer very unique or
Mhm.
trendy things that doesn't afford to put a brick and mortar place up yet. So it seems like it would be so.
Well, I could-
I'm thinking in my mind, I'm building this as I'm talking again. A
Could I
way to
suggest
encourage
that-
it, but not go
Could I
crazy.
suggest that you allow Chad to have a discussion with the town council at their January 9th meeting before you go down this road and
Sure.
waste a lot of time?
Right.
Because if they adamantly are still against it, as I feel that they are, they're going to change it. They're going to delete it as soon as it gets there. I mean, they are allowed right now
especially
For special
with a
events.
special event.
Let me add something to C3, the last sentence where it talks about, this is on page 3-48. Grease and liquid waste may not be disposed of in tree pits, storm drains, the sanitary sewer system, or public streets. I mean, I think we need to say it must be carried off by vendor, off-site by vendor. Because, I mean, I could take my grease and I could drop it in a garbage can at the town park right now, and you're not preventing me from doing that.
it says town trash receptacles may not be used to dispose trash or waste.
All right? So I can go over to
But we can.
Dave's. and
yeah,
put it
but
in his
yeah.
trash can. Must be carried off by
Yeah.
vendor.
Yep. All right. So
All right, we're through with that because Chad's going to do some homework with
Yep.
town council.
and then
There you go.
yes, Chad will hand these out to you. I want to point
Right.
out a couple
So we're
things.
stopping.
Yes, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Oh boy.
So the next section is will include dimensional standards. I
Give
have
that to Kate.
taken the liberty of trying to simplify some of this. As is always the case, this is going to be subject to discussion. In particular, side setbacks have now been given a static number versus a lot width for dimensional standards. There's also densities that have been added to each district. There's densities in some districts, others, for whatever reason, didn't have densities. These are based upon either the minimum lot size or what is in your existing land use plan. So they're not just, I didn't just come up with them out of thin air. There is a lot of additional narrative that coincides with the table. There's no good way necessarily to do it without it, other than just removing it, and I don't believe that would be supported by the town. And then the only other, see, I've got 2 more things to mention. Building design standards. We've had some discussion about incorporating the gateway overlay standards and making them applicable to all of the commercial districts, and then potentially removing the gateway overlay district altogether, so the standards would apply anywhere. That's something that we need to have a discussion about, and it may be a better way for the town to regulate building design moving forward, maybe simpler. Other than that, there's been a traffic impact study provision put in based on discussion with you all, and some vehicle storage provisions.
And this may be coming out of left field, but I was struck yesterday by the fact that in front of the sanctuary, there's no sidewalk. So somebody that wants to walk down 904 and enter the sanctuary is out of luck. Is there some reason for that, or?
So can we come back to that? Just there is no new definitions in this section.
Yeah.
Everything else is in there, and I'll be here in January. As far as the sanctuary, that may be an offline discussion about sidewalks. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and everyone.
And
Pleasure
we're
working
we're
with
going to
you.
pick up on 349 next time.
Correct.
Yes,
the
thank you.
page.
So I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm fine.
Everyone have a fantastic Christmas.
Yep. You too.
You as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
So do we need a motion to adjourn?
Oh,
Yes, we did.
I so move.
I
Do we have a
second.
second.
Any discussion?
Adjourned at 11:36.